for the Irish, probably salivating watching Burks run down the field. That ball is a good one to Diggs, and Logan's taken off. Past the defense, Diggs, 75 yards, touchdown.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
On third down, here's the blitz. Tagovailoa lobs it for Smith. Did he hold on? Touchdown, Maryland.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Right now you see Iowa defenders loading the box. The play fake for Wade. Reads it over the middle. It's picked off. That is Xavier Wampa. There goes Wampa. Touchdown, Iowa.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
From the 14, it's a wide open crease for Moore. Dunquist Moore starts the scoring for Duke.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Extra point try coming up. Place kicked up. Oh, it's good! It's good! I don't know how, but it's good! Can you believe that? Oh.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon on this Thursday, and there is breaking news in men's college basketball. In fact, down in Austin, Texas, where today the University of Texas informed head coach Chris Beard that he was terminated effective January the 5th. And we have the letter from UT and Chris Del Conte to Beard, in fact, saying all of what you would say normally in a termination letter, and reading that, and give you about 4 or 5 seconds to read it if you haven't yet or seen it yet. This to me, again, termination letters are never fun. But this to me, Craig and Paul, looked like one that was a little angry in a way, just the way it was worded. And I guess that's kind of what you have to do legally as well.
Well, I don't know. I hope I'm not reading into this, and we'll talk to Cedric Golden a little bit. But if you read on, and we'll have some of that in a second, but it does appear that the university was not too happy with the procedures of Chris Beard's lawyer over the time of this. It's very clear to me at this time that it was, totally on Chris Beard that had his fiance release a statement, and Texas probably didn't want that to happen because then that's something that we're going to have to try to walk back later as they got into this. But yeah, they did the right thing. I couldn't imagine any fashion of them moving forward because once you do that, once you say this time was okay, then if it happens again, or if it's happened before and you didn't necessarily know about it, you've got egg on your face and you can't ever really get it off.
Well, first I want to give props to Texas for making the move. I mean, they could have sat back and fought this or just gone quiet. It seemed like that's possibly what they were banking on doing. I mean, I do think that pre-Friday Christmas press release was a calculated, kind of PR move. And it made me wonder that if you weren't trying to hide anything and you weren't worried about the exposure or the coverage of it, why you would need to sneak that in there. But that is a move that, people releasing statements like that do make. So, it served its purpose as far as kind of chilling the conversation there for a while as everybody broke for Christmas and focused on, college football and the NFL. So that made me kind of scratch my head and think like, are they really going to try to maneuver their way around this? And certainly you give them allowance for, needing to take some time. I mean, I don't think anybody was there, with pitchforks and torches outside of, Chris Del Conte's home and like, he needs to be fired right now. I don't think anybody was like that. Everybody knew you kind of needed time to figure this thing out. But, the way that press release was dropped and I was like, maybe they are trying to figure out how they can keep him. But to their credit, they moved relatively swiftly and went ahead and finalized it today that they're going to be moving in a different direction. And so I give them credit for that. And that's not always, necessarily an easy thing to do, obviously. So good on them. And I think that, when it comes to his lawyer, I didn't like his behavior from the very get-go. When he came out, and I understand that lawyers have to do their jobs and to protect their clients and everything, but this guy was out there within hours of the police report coming out saying Chris Beard's 100% innocent of these charges. He should never have been arrested. The complainant wants him released, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, it just struck me at the time, not that I was seeing the future or anything, but it just struck me kind of weird and very ambulance lawyer type of response in a way. And I just didn't get a good vibe off of that. And then you see some of these interactions that we'll look at in a second. And yeah, I'm not very impressed with Chris Beard's lawyer. I thought somebody with a lot of money would have had somebody a bit better than the interactions I saw. But good on Texas.
I don't know.
I said.
Yeah, I don't know his history. I mean, I'm sure he's elite and getting paid a lot of money. He is defending his client, but I thought it was a little sleazy the way it was the initial part of it. Instead of maybe, but then again, that's just probably the way it is to try to go out and defend your client if you can. I don't know enough about all that. This has been an ugly situation. I do agree with you, Paul and Craig, and also Paul, I'm sure you do as well, that even though there was time where you started to wonder, man, is this going to, they think this is going to go away? Listen, UT has always been someone that is watching what others do. They could not think that this was going to go away, and now today the trigger was pulled.
Yeah, and one of the questions that they were always going to have to answer when it came down to it was, based on what we read in the police report, which we all saw the day after it happened, okay, so she slapped your glasses off your face, and your claim is that it's self-defense, but you don't appear to be all that marked up. Did she slap your glasses off? And this is the University of Texas is asking this question. So when you felt the need to defend yourself, outside of her knocking your glasses off your face, did she do that with a bat? Did she point a gun at you? Did she try and stab you? Did she throw something at you? Or did you just respond violently to a situation that needed to be de-escalated? And I think we kind of know the answer to that. And so even if she's not going to press charges, you can't have a guy like this leading your basketball team. You just can't do it.
He's not anymore.
Yeah.
So there was the response, Texas's obviously letter to him from Chris Del Conte.
And to be very clear, on that Christmas Eve, that was not Chris Del Conte, unleashing that. That was, the woman coming out, and the timing of it was just very suspect. But it did make me wonder, because those two sides are at least talking. It made me wonder if that was a PR type of move because of when it was dropped. But that could have been entirely on the Chris Beard side of things. No, she's saying that it was mutual and blah blah blah. But that whole thing with her coming out and trying to basically play the victim in that statement, that left a really bad taste in my mouth. And I wondered after that of man, where is this headed? So I don't know what really happened. None of us do, other than those two, obviously. But I am, what's the right word here? Because thankful is not the right word, and happy is not really the right word either. But yeah, I do appreciate that Texas made the move that they did, I guess.
Well, and so his attorney, of course, as Craig mentioned, and you would think that he had everything to do with the alleged victim's statement right on the eve of Christmas. This was. All this sounds as though I'm being pushy or fussy with you, Jim. I assure you that I am not. I want to understand. This is the attorney for Chris Beard to Texas. All I want to understand is why the university has changed course on its earlier stated position when the only developments since then have clearly been positive for Coach Beard and the university, perhaps referring to the alleged victim's letter. Moreover, I have been very grateful that Chris Del Conte has repeatedly reported to our team that he is certain that Chris Beard did nothing wrong and is innocent. I just do not understand the change of heart with no explanation on such short notice, particularly in light of the university's alignment and support that he is innocent. Texas responded to that with their own letter. It's very long and lengthy, but bottom line was they were trying to do what was right in the system, whether or not people believe that or not, by waiting to see what information they would have, and that any position that Chris Del Conte was showing as far as backing Chris Beard was him giving him the benefit of the doubt until further notice. But not all of the reports of Mr. Beard's behavior were retracted. It is his actual behavior that we consider, not whether some acts also constitute a crime whether or not the district attorney ultimately charges Mr. Beard is not determinative of whether he engaged in conduct unbecoming a head coach at our university.
Yeah, so go back to what I just said. So the incident, whether the legal system pursues it or not, this is not a legal matter at this point for the University of Texas. What they're saying is this is a character matter, and it falls under the auspices of firing for cause. And what Chris Del Conte may or may not have said to the team in the weeks right after is, again, just giving him the benefit of the doubt as the university, conducted its own investigation and found those things out. Because, again, there's far more questions if you bring him back than if you let him go for the university. And there's far more things you have to then watch out for and cover your bases on if they do. And outside of the morality of this, it just makes sense legally for them to move on because, you don't want an Urban Meyer, Zach Smith situation on your hands where you could have stopped something at one point and then you let it go and then it happens again and again.
So there's the back and forth between the legal people from either UT and or administration of UT,
well, his
and
attorney,
then also from his attorney who represents Chris Beard.
His attorney had another statement that came out a little while ago saying Chris Beard's crushed the news. He'll not be coaching at the University of Texas. At the outset of Coach Beard's suspension, the university promised they would conduct an independent investigation surrounding the allegations, make a decision regarding his employment only after they had done so. They proceeded to terminate Coach Beard without asking a single question of him or his fiancée. Since the arrest, there have only been positive developments, clearly demonstrating his innocence. Additionally, it is my opinion, shared by others, that any potential charges against Coach Beard will be declined very soon. This, in addition to the statements made by his fiancée that emphatically state that the original reports were inaccurate, I am concerned that UT has made a terrible decision against the interest of the university based on Twitter feeds and editorials and not the facts concerning a truly innocent man. The university has violated their agreement with the coach, and we are devastated. So that was his attorney after the latest round of back and forth, and he's maintaining innocence as you would expect him to. But I think that Texas, made a good move and, made a prudent move. And, we'll see in the wash if, there's anything else that stems from it. But, I don't know. I'm not like shocked or stunned or surprised, really. I mean, that they did something. I think just the timing of it, just kind of when there was just sort of this cut off of any sort of news really for the last week or so. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's fired, is a little bit surprising and kind of need to digest that a little bit, but very interesting stuff.
All right, so the chat room, a lot of different responses. Most everybody I see and have been able to keep up with since we started the show and after that is pretty much behind the decision that UT made the right decision in allowing and letting Chris Beard go. There is some discussion about how long will it be before he coaches again, because we've seen others who have been involved in various incidents renew or rejuvenate their careers and have success at Power 5 type schools or in college basketball. There's 351 schools. Even in fact, in football, we've seen that happen as well.
He'll definitely be coaching sooner rather than later. There's no question about that, because this is fuzzy enough that you can maintain your innocence, and there's not probably anything that's going to come down the pipeline that truly proves that you did or didn't do anything. So we know guys who have done far, far worse, and they have been back at coaching, have been back at a couple of different places, especially in basketball. So there's no doubt about it that barring some nuclear bomb of news that we're completely unaware of at the moment, Chris Beard will be coaching again sooner than he isn't, and that can all be speculated upon at some point in time. But the big news now is definitely what just happened, and the thing with Texas is that they are fully capable of going and finding a guy just as good, if not better. That's the thing that they do have in their back pocket that not every other school would have. Other schools would probably try to cling on a little tighter, just for the simple fact that he is a good basketball coach, and you're not going to replace Chris Beard with somebody as good or better than Chris Beard. Like, you kind of had to just be the right hire at the right time to get a guy like that. But for Texas, I mean, they could go after anybody in America, basically, and so they'll be fine. That'll hurt them this year, certainly. To what extent will remain to be seen. It certainly completely veers the the wagon off the road that they had at the beginning of the year of being, top 10, top 5 discussion, being as highly ranked as they were right when this happened. And then even, winning some games right after with the interim and feeling pretty good up until the loss to K-State. They'll still be very much in the mix, but this whole idea of like Beard and a basketball dynasty and what the plan originally was, they'll find a really great coach, but that's obviously kaput already, and that's another interesting part of this.
Well, I do think though in the short term though, it's probably better for the guys on the team that this is resolved.
It's hovering. We've seen this before with other investigations or alleged scandals or anything else with players and or coaches. So they now move on, and I'm sure that UT will be just fine. And losing their game to Kansas State just a couple of nights ago, 116-103. How much of any of that they were doing fine until they ran into a red-hot Kansas State team in Jerome Tang. Couple of college football notes we need to get to. Brian Estridge will join us, voice of TCU, and what a huge win in basketball for them last night in another Big 12 shootout. Coming back from 17 down to beat Baylor 88-87. Miles was incredible for TCU. Baylor seems to me that they ran out of gas, and my God, they gave up one layup after another or tip-in after another. But we'll get into that as well. Estridge will also be here, of course, on TCU in Georgia. Notre Dame has found their quarterback. Notre Dame. Paul, you mentioned this, and Craig, you've mentioned this. It was a matter of time. Sam Hartman. Wake Forest is now a part of the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, this is a great move for them. It's a great move for Marcus Freeman. Sam Hartman is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and if you've watched him play at Wake Forest, he is a guy he is a difficult quarterback to get. And there's a couple games where you can see it where he's in a rut, but man, it's difficult for a defense to get him there. He's tough. He's a gamer. He came back from the blood clot issue. Really, really excellent player. And it's going to, I think, fit in really well with Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. And again, it's 1 year. He needed to improve his stock, and there are a couple things going on at Wake Forest that were hurting him for whatever reason. The biggest of which is that they run the slow mesh, and nobody in the NFL runs the slow mesh, so he needed to go to an offense that is more NFL friendly. And the second thing, and this was addressed by David Clawson, is Wake Forest doesn't have the big NIL collectives like everybody else does, and Notre Dame does. So Sam Hartman, if he's not going to be an NFL quarterback, needs to maximize his name while he can.
Yeah, I mean, he's undoubtedly their starting quarterback next year, that's for sure. And so they're going to go from, a situation where it, wasn't probably as bad as it was made out to be, but wasn't as good as it could have been either. Last year to, Pine and Buckner to now, one of the most highly sought after transfers of the entire, college football offseason, and a guy who clearly, as Paul pointed out, did his thing at a very high level. At Wake Forest. So, I think this is a huge pickup for Notre Dame, to state the obvious, and I'm excited to see, how he's able to get in there for Marcus Freeman and company and make that difference that they're looking for him to make for them. Because if you looked at Notre Dame all year, what was probably one of the biggest gripes was certainly you'd have felt like you could probably get more out of the quarterback position. And again, that criticism was probably levied too much at times, because I think they got better play than they probably gave credit for in some cases. But, obviously this is an upgrade. He'll get, some looks in a very interesting schedule next year against a, variety of teams like USC and Ohio State, all in the first few weeks of the season. They play Clemson next year. They play, a ton of other Pitt, NC State, Louisville. So that'll be fun to see him lined up against that grab bag of teams, and really good pickup for the Irish.
I believe Buckner played very well in their bowl game, and they would love to have had that more consistently. But Sam Hartman now at Notre Dame. Baylor today found a transfer kicker to maybe put some juice into the kicking game. Jack Stone from Michigan State, a walk-on at Michigan State last year. 2 of 4 field goals, kicked one from 43 and 51 yards. Missed a couple in the 40-yard range as well. Also handles kickoff. So he's a young player, a kicker. You wonder if this gives a little juice to the kicking game. 2 of 4 is one thing, but with all due respect to who they've had, Hankins and or Mayers, who has been around a long time, had made some key kicks as well. There was the feeling that if they lined up from 40 and on, it just was a crapshoot of whether or not they had enough juice. And it may not always be the kicker, because there's more to just the guy who's kicking the ball that could have created that issue too.
Yeah, kickers are hard to find. They're tough. It's it's like catching that like perfect fish. Sometimes you're going to, most of the time you're not. And I don't understand how we've been playing football this long, and we still don't have, at least a slightly deeper pool of kickers available. I understand it's hard.
I think
and a
the
lot
kickers
of it's
in the
psychological.
NFL are better than they've ever been before.
But that's, again, you're talking about 32 guys, right?
No, I know.
But like the pool is not deep, and we've done high school games for I've done high school games for years, and different schools, different levels, all over the place. I've seen 25 good quarterbacks that I've seen 100 great running backs and wide receivers and all that. I've seen 2 good kickers in my entire career doing that. Like, it's just hard to do.
Yeah, and it's not as fun, Paul.
Yeah,
What would you rather be, a quarterback or a kicker? Right receiver or a kicker? I think most people would like to have the ball in their hands, not solely on their foot. And so maybe that's just part of it is the participation levels. I did want to make mention, I don't know if I mentioned it in throwing out some of the names that Notre Dame will play next year. Sam Hartman will play his old team on that schedule next season. We'll play Wake Forest. So that's one of those interesting matchups that they'll have. But, yeah, I mean, I think that, when it comes to Baylor's kicking game, there was certainly room for improvement. And I don't know about, the overall need level for change, but I'm all for revamping and them going about doing that from the top to the bottom. And I do think that kicker is an area where you can improve and you can be better and a bit more assured when you trot your guy out there and maybe not feel like you have to go for it on 4th down as many times as you did. I think that played into a lot of their decisions at times. And certainly the analytics portion or whatever the table said is what they did as well. But I do think that had to weigh on their mind when they're deciding, like, hey, do we want to go grab 3 and feel good about it? Or do we probably need to just go and try to get 7 and then maybe get this guy closer and then we can feel better about 3. And so maybe that alleviates some of that from your decision-making process. But yeah, I mean, they were far from perfect. And so I think just about anything special teams wise, they can afford to try and improve that area.
Mayers was 34 of 45 in his career. His long was 51. It was the only one over 50. He was 10 of 14, he was 1 of 1 from 50, 8 of 15 from 40, and the accuracy from 40 and on is getting better and better. In the end, he was 34 of 45, and they'll miss Rauschenberg in his kickoffs. We're now joined, nope, not yet. We'll break first. We'll come back with a break. Brian Estridge, voice of TCU, on the game with Georgia, how the Frogs have handled everything this week, and, of course, even last night's win at the Farrell Center against Baylor. And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on right now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on, not only to find a great car and a great deal on a new car, but also pre-owned vehicles and just a great customer service as well. New truck or SUV is available on the lot right now. I'll get more specific when you get over there and have discussions with them, but put it this way, they've got dozens of Sierra trucks and dozens of different model SUVs over on the lot. It's the biggest inventory they've had in 2 years. So been a little while to have this much variety on the Richard Carr lot. Go over there right now, check it out, get some details, and take advantage of that. But I can provide a couple of details to you. For example, right now you get 3.9% interest for well-qualified buyers on GMC Sierras, as well as GMC Terrains in stock. You got 3.99% financing on Buick Encores, Buick Envisions, and Buick Enclaves in stock as well. There's the GMC Sierra. It's got best-in-class towing, unsurpassed strength, premium comfort. Right now, 3.9% financing. Current GMC or Buick owners get a $2,500 loyalty rebate as well on qualified GMC Sierra trucks. So that's some of what they've got to offer new-wise. As far as the pre-owns, there's dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock under $20,000 right now over on the lot. And if you're just looking to simply drive your car or truck a little while longer, their award-winning service department is standing by to keep you on the road as well. So you can go to the website, richardcar.com, to see service specials or set an appointment for a quick and reliable repair. So for 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, whatever those may be, from buying new, buying pre-owned, or just getting your vehicle fixed up. Richard Carr, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports in studio today, taking you all the way until 6 o'clock. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. And we're now joined by the voice of TCU. What a run it's been, Brian Estridge. Georgia, TCU Monday night, and last night TCU men's basketball with a thrilling win against Baylor at the Farrell Center. You're kind of riding a pretty good life right now.
Hey, man, it feels good. I'll tell you that. It's been a fun ride for this football team. And then, last night to get that win at the Farrell Center. I'm just excited you're going to ask me about basketball, brother. I mean, I've done so many conversations about football that I don't want folks to lose sight of what the Big 12 is doing as far as NCAA basketball is concerned. I mean, this league is stout, is it not?
It's deep as you can possibly imagine.
Yeah. Brian, Baylor fans want to know, though, how many more semesters of eligibility does Mike Miles have?
23. I just checked. So he should be here a while. No, he's a terrific player. And last night was just unbelievable. A career night for him to go. What was it, 433 or I guess or whatever it was. I mean, and to really kind of will this team back from 17 down. But it's more than Mike Miles. I mean, this is a team that only turned it over 7 times. I think it was that has had success. Distributing the basketball with Damian. But I think Damian Ball is really kind of the guy that makes this team go, and they've been good defensively. So, but you know how hard it is to win on the road in the Big 12, and to be able to pull that one out in the Farrell Center, which the Frogs hadn't done in what 4 games? I guess 3 or 4 games. That was a big one.
I thought I saw a note as some of these stats come down. It's the first time that TCU has beaten Baylor, a ranked Baylor team in Waco.
That wouldn't surprise me. I was talking to our friend Pat Nunnally before the game, and he was reminding me of what was the name of the old arena, the Heart of Texas Arena, that he and Vinny Johnson combined for 62 one night against TCU. Vinny had 50 and he had 12. That it's always been a rivalry like that. That has been back and forth. There's always something that happens in this game, and so this one obviously that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you look at what Scott Drew has done and his success against TCU over years. He was like 16-4, I think, wasn't he, against the Horned Frogs? So that stat would not surprise me, David.
Brian, your thoughts on Chris Beard getting let go at Texas? TCU hasn't seen him yet, but it's big news in the Big 12 today.
What took so long? That's all. That was my first thought. Was what took so long. I mean, I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know how you continue as a head coach after doing that. I mean, you and I wouldn't be able to keep our job. I know the guys that you guys work with. I mean, we wouldn't still be here. That it didn't surprise me. I think that athletic department's still, trying to find its way. And so let them find their way in the SEC, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly the point. Now, yeah. TCU just seems to be just feeding off of everything positive, what they've done, the resiliency, dictating a lot of that game against Michigan. And then when they were tested, they, of course, did very well and bounced right back. The Quentin Johnston dagger was incredible. How have they handled, in your opinion, yet another week of where they are on the national stage?
Smoak, that's a great question. I don't know if we know the answer to that until Monday night. I mean, I tell people this all the time that I'm sure Sonny Dykes has made a mistake, and I guess he did late in that Kansas State game at the goal line. But other than that, I don't know what he's done wrong since he got here. I mean, it seems like he has he's actually punched every button. And done it correctly for this program and for this team here this year. And so, they had a plan going into this week. They had talked to a bunch of folks who had been a part of situations like this before. So it's as organized as I've seen. They feel like they're going to be able to carry it out. And so, I think that it's going to be interesting to see, with the eyes of the nation on them, knowing this, guys, that they don't have the benefit of sneaking up on Georgia. And I just didn't feel like Michigan knew what they were in for, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they were necessarily overlooking them, but I just don't think that Michigan had the respect for the Big 12 that they should have, nor the respect for TCU. And some of that, guys, I blame us. I'll be honest with you. I blame all of us who cover the Big 12 because we don't blow the league's horn the way the SEC has media who does that, or the Big 10 who has media who does that, who carry their water for them, and maybe that's because we're just fair. I don't know. But, one of the things that I kept noticing is this narrative as I was doing interviews in Detroit and other places in Michigan. The thing that came up was, this Michigan line is so much bigger than anything you've seen, and how are you going to handle that, and what do you do about that? And I would remind them that the TCU offensive line was 3/4 of an inch taller and 17 pounds heavier than Michigan's, and it's like, come on, guys, you got to get out of this old narrative and realize what college football is today. The Big 12, do they throw it around? Yes, because they got great skill players. But it's as physical as any league in the country. I just did an interview in Salt Lake City today, and they said, hey, what kind of advice would you give BYU? I said, one is, don't believe the hype that this league is not physical. Two is, you better improve your depth because it is so physical. You're going to run through players. And so to me, I think that's a message that the Big 12 has to start selling.
No, I'm with you. Everybody there's, obviously a lot of air raid offenses, but people think that means you just throw the ball 70 times a game, that you don't run it well, and that you can't be smash mouth when you need to be. And like those old Baylor teams that a lot of people are kind of, taking parts from, and you see that now spreading across the SEC. Brian, you saw firsthand they could run the ball as well as anybody. They were as physical and nasty as anybody was.
Yeah, look at that Baylor team last year.
Yeah.
I mean, that Baylor team last year was as physical as anybody. And so, yeah, there's no question. I mean, you can't tell me Kansas State isn't a physical football team. You just can't tell me that. There was always a level of physical nature with Oklahoma and their offensive line, when they were really good. Oklahoma State's guys fly around and hit you. We know that Iowa State, when Matt Campbell had them good a couple of years ago, how physical were they? So I don't buy into any of that crap. Now, Texas, they're not physical, but that's okay. But everybody else is. And so I think that folks around the country have to realize that.
So you've called a lot of TCU games over the years, but what was that like, the other night to just sit back and watch them in this setting against a team of that caliber, knowing what was at stake and just watching that unfold the way that it did?
I'd be lying to you if I tell you it wasn't exciting. I mean, obviously it was. I mean, you try to stay in the moment. You try to stay professional. You try to, deliver on your job. But there is something special about being in that ball game, and there'll be something even greater in this one. We had a chance to play in the Rose Bowl in 2011, and that was a ton of fun. And this is a program that's been to a bunch of bowls, 19 of the last 22 years or something like that. And those are all big, but this is kind of the big boy. This is where it ends up being. And so, I feel very blessed because there's a lot of play-by-play guys who are better than I am and much more deserving. But I'm just going to try to stay within the game and deliver on this one, and hopefully folks in the and go, I could follow the ball. I know what he was doing.
You're being very humble, and that's the way it is. We appreciate you doing that. Again, Brian Estridge with us on 365 Sports, voice of TCU.
Yeah, Brian, Sonny Dykes made a kind of, or I guess it wasn't Sonny Dykes, but that Kirby Smart was asked about the construction of the rosters and how these two teams are so different. And he's like, look, I don't look at that. And it's just about how you are at the end of the day, which was his very coach speak answer. But it can be intimidating if you only look at recruiting rankings. But does the portal and the fact that TCU is now kind of decorated with, Max Duggan being the Heisman runner-up, you have the Thorpe Award winner, you've got a lot of things going on there, that maybe those things kind of balance itself out because everybody's contributed, and we've seen how people are between the stripes right now.
What it proves, guys, I think, is that those guys who do those ratings out of high school may not know what they're doing. I mean, think about it this way. When you look at TCU, there will be more players drafted. Are we recording this? I want to record it.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Paul, hit record. Because there will be more players drafted from TCU than Georgia this year. You look at a first-round draft pick at wide receiver in Quentin Johnson. You got one of the early running backs in Kentrey Miller that will go. I mean, there's just talent around this team. You got 5 guys along the front of the offensive line. 5 guys. All 5 of those guys will be in an NFL camp. I'm not telling you they're going to be drafted, but all 5 of them will be in an NFL camp. You got Dylan Horton, who had 4 sacks against Michigan. His stock is rising tremendously. You got 2 corners. One of them you guys know quite well, and Trey Hodges-Tomlinson, that are, those are 2 early round draft picks at corner. Stop me. You know what I'm saying? Hey, come on now. At some point, those grades coming to high school don't matter. If you want to talk grades, let's look at what the NFL guys are saying about next level players. And right now, TCU is the one that's got as much as anyone that's playing in this college football playoff. So, yeah, I as far as the construction of the rosters, okay, fine. I mean, TCU, I think you got to give their coaches credit and go back to Gary Patterson's staff to being able to evaluate talent, don't you? That you found these guys that were at Mount Enterprise, as you and I have talked before, who can come in and be a star at running back for you. And so, and then you do dot it with some transfer portals. But listen, that's today. I'm trying not to live in the past. I mean, today is the transfer portal and it's the NIL. And if TCU had to go out and kind of fill some holes with transfer portal guys and they fit into what Sonny Dykes was preaching, Jared Wiley at tight end, Josh Newton at one of the corners. I mean, if those guys come in and actually make a difference, well, more power to them. To me, that's called good coaching.
DeMarcado was really good in that game with Michigan. Of course, TCU had 263 yards rushing, and Miller went out. And obviously, you mentioned him. He's the young man that played at a Class 2A school in Mount Enterprise in East Texas. Anything yet on where he is when it comes to Monday night?
Here's the one thing I will say, and you guys know this. Sonny Dykes is transparent. He is honest. He doesn't play games for the injury report or the two deep. You know, Jim Harbaugh don't even give you a two deep. You know, he doesn't play any games with that crap. And he said that Kentre Miller is questionable, and I have to take him at his word. Now, some would say, well, listen, that's kind of dodging the question, but I think the evaluation will continue throughout the week on Kentre Miller. Now, knowing Kentre the way that we all do, I think he plays. You know, I think if they don't want him to play, they better have already taken his helmet, because if that helmet makes its way to California, it's going to be on his head. You know, he's going to figure out a way to play. So I think in the end he plays. Now, will he be 100%? I don't know. Hey, guys, how about the story, though, of Amari DiMarcado, the backup running back from Inglewood? He could see SoFi Stadium from the middle of his street. His dad drives a bus at LAX. This is a guy who wanted nothing more than to get back home and show his folks one more time that he made it. Here he had 2 Division I offers out of high school, Army and Navy. So his grades weren't an issue. But so he decided to go to Saddleback Junior College to get bigger and faster and stronger. Gets an offer from TCU, has a 3.77 GPA with 2 master's degrees, and he's going home for the national championship. Isn't that what college football is all about?
Yeah, to me, actually, the score will matter because that's the national champion, but it's the stories behind the teams that, whether they go 0-10 or they have a chance to win the national championship, that have always been my favorite part of the covering the games or watching the games.
Yeah, no question. And you got great storylines. I mean, look at the 2, those are unlimited storylines that come out of those two great leaders that have had their trials and tribulations leading into this ball game, who are, now you got players on both sides that would run through a brick wall for both of them. I was so glad that both of them got to go to New York. You guys will laugh at this. Sonny the other day said that we asked him, hey, did you have any chance to spend any time with Stetson and Kirby? And he said, yeah, at the Heisman Trophy ceremony, although those two started talking strategy and ball in the middle of the conversation. He goes, that's all they want to do, is they want to talk about football. So he laughed at that. Apparently the Stetson's a lot like Max too, that he just, he loves the game. He's a student of the game. And you can tell it by the way he plays.
So, Brian, just looking back at that Michigan game, obviously Georgia is a team loaded with talent, just like Michigan was. But, in terms of the matchup, obviously they'll come with their wrinkles. TCU will have theirs. But just, eye to eye, what do you look at as far as the Bulldogs go, and what stands out to you in terms of this matchup?
Yeah, Craig, the thing that stands out to me is the D-line for Georgia. I mean, good gracious, those guys are good. And Michigan's was big. K-State's is big. Texas Tech, we thought, was one of the better ones in the Big 12 this year. But these cats, good gracious, man, it's a different level. They're big, they're fast, they're strong. They get upfield. They apply tremendous pressure, and they kind of protect that back end. If you notice the last couple of weeks, teams have had some success throwing the football on them. But they've done it. Those have been two pretty good football teams they faced. But, I think that's what really stands out, is how good they are along that defensive line. And maybe that's because it's the hardest position in college football to recruit. But that really stands out. I mean, this is a Georgia team that won't be in awe of TCU's speed. I think Michigan was a little bit not prepared for it. Georgia's going to be just as fast as TCU. Maybe, overall team speed, TCU may have a little something there. It's a big old offensive line with a great offensive line coach in Stacey Searles, who I think is one of the best O-line coaches in the country. So that kind of stands out to you. And then you got Stetson. I mean, a guy, who he's not all that big. He's probably not all that strong compared to other guys, but he makes all the throws they need him to make. He can move in the pocket and buy himself some time. So, I mean, it looks on paper like the best team in the country. I mean, I don't know how you could say anything different. I mean, they're pretty impressive just to watch them on tape.
It's amazing, those two quarterbacks, the stories, as you mentioned, DeMarcado among so many others. The story, TCU, the win last night in basketball, playing for the national title Monday, and having themselves a run with what they're doing at TCU with Donati as the AD, and, of course, with Sonny Dykes and also Jamie Dixon. Brian, thank you very much for your time. I know you'll enjoy the moment, and take a deep breath and enjoy that air and the stadium inside, I guess. And
sort
then,
of both.
Yeah,
inside,
kind of both.
outside,
Yeah. And then good luck, man. We appreciate you and enjoy the moment again. Enjoy the journey.
Gentlemen, you guys are my faves. I enjoyed the time here today. Thank you very much.
You too. That's the voice of TCU. Last night at the Farrell Center with TCU winning against Baylor, and Monday night at SoFi in L.A. for the national championship with Georgia.
Yeah, SoFi's got what is the it's kind of like closed in, but there's like air that blows through at the top of it, right? It's not completely.
It's kind of a
domed in,
almost like a spaceship type, where it's like hovering in a way. Yeah,
but there's like it's not an open roof, but there's openings in the top. Yeah, so it's you get some of the outside environment, and the wind can play a factor, I believe. So that, I don't know how much that's on the top of mind. That's more for the team's small details to worry about for them. Us at home will just appreciate what we see on our screens, and never would have predicted this matchup at the beginning of the year. Nobody did, obviously, and good for Brian and company. Great timing for them in their first year with Frogs today to be launching right into a national championship run, like we were fortunate with Baylor and the timing there and the Sugar Bowl and all that. So good luck to him and the crew.
All right. Thanks to Brian Estridge and voice of TCU, and Cedric Golden, Austin American statesman. We had Cedric on soon after, or maybe even the day after, the Chris Beard allegations. Today, as we mentioned to start the show, Chris Beard has been fired by the University of Texas, and Cedric has written an article on it and gives us his insight as well. Cedric, I guess people can say that I read the letter from Del Conte to Beard. It seemed to be angry. Maybe it's just a standard termination letter, but your thoughts of why today, why not maybe 2 weeks ago, but why today?
That it's because they weren't happy with Beard's explanation of what went down. And so what happens now is it doesn't really matter to the University of Texas if he is charged or not. They talked to him. They viewed their investigations. They viewed the police report, and they thought it best to part ways with Chris Beard, because Chris Beard, what he told them just wasn't enough. And what I felt in that letter as well, guys, is they don't think that he showed enough contrition for his role in what happened. And so here we are. And when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I told you guys that I didn't think that he'd be back. Mm-hmm. And the optics were just too bad. They were ugly. The optics are bad. And even if the charges are dropped, he's going to always carry the stigma around that he was engaged in a domestic violent act. Whether he's cleared or not didn't really matter to the University of Texas. They wanted to part ways with him, and they acted not swiftly. They gave it a couple of weeks. They conducted their own investigation. They spoke with the coach and made a really tough decision to fire Chris Beard.
Cedric, what do you make of the claims from his attorney that Chris Del Conte was telling the team that he felt that Coach Beard would be back? Do you think that is padding on maybe what Chris Del Conte said, or how does that all work out?
That's a really good question. I just don't. I've talked to Del Conte, over the last couple of weeks, and he did not want to be quoted publicly, but he wanted to make sure that the understanding was he was taking the slow burn, the slow approach, letting this thing be a slow burn, getting all his ducks in a row. And he made it clear that he did not want me to say that the university was leaning any side, because they weren't. He goes, we are looking at this objectively. It's not we believe him or we don't believe him. We're gathering facts. So whether or not he said that to the team, I don't know. I'm not privy to those conversations. I know Perry Minton is a very fine lawyer, and he's gonna represent his client zealously and to the best of his ability. And what I surmise through that letter, number one, is he is ride or die with Chris Beard. Number two, he's setting this thing up for a wrongful termination suit. So get ready for that one.
said when it comes to just this short journey of getting Chris Beard to Austin in the first place, obviously the news when it broke was stunning, and now to be here is stunning as well. But just how do you wrap your head around the big push to get him and bring him in from Texas Tech and how it's ending so suddenly?
Guys, it was an absolute coup to get Chris Beard. After the failed Shaka Smart experiment, no tournament wins over 5 seasons, I believe it was, and to get a guy that took Texas Tech to the national championship game, a hard-nosed coach who knew these UT streets because he coached here. He was a grad assistant here, and so to get him in this position was thought to be a monumental feather in the cap of Chris Del Conte and the leadership at Texas, because we know that Chris Beard is a winner, and he did more with less in Lubbock. And with the facilities at Texas, with the recruiting base of the state, and with the city of Austin also serving as a great place for potential young players to come and play, they had all the boxes checked. But then this happens, and just like that, less than 2 seasons in, man, it is a nightmare that they are having to part ways with the guy that they wanted. And now Rodney Terry assumes command. He's very capable, but let's not get it twisted. He's not Chris Beard. He's not. And so the talent is still there, but what remains to be seen is if Rodney Terry can take them to the special places that I really believe Chris Beard was going to take them.
I saw I believe it might have been Instagram or Twitter, Ron Holland, who's an elite commit to Texas and waiting his time. His mother also, I believe, followed up with that as well. Obviously, that's too early. There's a lot that still needs to be done. There's a lot of games to be played. But what are the thoughts? Rodney Terry obviously will finish out the season as the interim head coach. Will they go big name or will they go the right fit? Because Texas has been hit and miss with some of those either way.
You know, my hope is that Rodney Terry gets a chance to prove himself. I mean, he's a long-time assistant to Rick Barnes. He helped recruit Kevin Durant and guys like that, DJ Augustine, Damian James from Nacogdoches, those guys. But for me, I hope he gets a chance to prove himself. If they do go big name, it's going to be someone who's obviously going to coach deep into the tournament, unless they want to go for someone on the sidelines. I don't think Coach K wants to get off of his recliner. I don't know if Jay Wright wants to get back in the game. I know the Jay Wright is the first phone call I would make. I mean, it's Jay Wright. Yeah. And so if Jay Wright wants to leave the Northeast and move to Austin, then that's the first call. And I would back up a Brinks truck to his driveway and go, Jay, here's what we can give you. It's big money. It's top 5 money. And we're going to give you a clothing allowance because we know you like to dress nice. So that's what I would do, because Jay Wright is a proven winner and he always ran a clean ship at Villanova. So beyond that, if you're looking at present day guys, it's someone that's probably ranked in the top 25 and not interested in leaving what's a promising season to go to Texas and clean up this mess. Hopefully, the guy they find, if he's somebody that's still coaching, will wait till after the tournament before they come to terms.
Cedric, what has been the reaction from what you've heard or read or seen as far as from the Texas fan base?
It's split, Smokey. There are people that are like, oh, it's blown out of proportion and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, a woman called the cops because she didn't feel safe. That's something that cannot be changed, no matter what she said days later, what she retracted. She called the cops because there was an altercation going on at Chris Beard's house. And bite marks and bruises and being thrown off the bed, that's in the record. That happened that night. And there's nothing that can be said that's going to take that away. So, but it's definitely split. There's some pro-Beard people saying that, hey, I think they're blowing it out of proportion and that he shouldn't have been fired, or other people saying, oh, look, you can't put your hands on a woman. It's a polarizing issue. Domestic violence is a big issue in our country, and not just we've seen famous people get caught up. Dana White, the UFC president, caught exchanging slaps with his wife at a nightclub on New Year's Eve. Gervonta Davis, a world champion boxer, charged for the second or third time with a domestic violence charge. So it's happening. The Me Too movement is a big, big movement. People are being called out and exposed for this thing. The advent of social media and cell phone video cameras, there aren't as many secrets anymore, guys. And you know what? I'm all for that because I don't put my hands on women like that. And when you do something like that, and I know Chris Beard's innocent until proven guilty, when you're charged with something like that and those details come to light, even if you're eventually exonerated, it can cost you dearly. And it cost him $30 million at Texas and untold other millions that he could have made in endorsements at other jobs with appearances. So all told, it probably was a $100 million mistake. He'll coach again, but he'll never command the kind of money he was making here in office.
All right, just to clarify, we appreciate your time, that the university was not happy with Beard's response and or his lack of any kind of guilt, not guilt, but you know what I mean, as far
Contrition.
as
Contrition is the word I like to use.
Yeah. And no matter what the law or what the legal system or whatever happens with the case itself, he's gone. And the bottom line is he damaged the name of the university, correct? You put a stain on the university no matter what actually happens in the legal system.
Absolutely. Put the university in a really negative light in a letter sent to Beard and an email sent to Beard by the VP of Legal Affairs, James Davis, basically said, we're not paying you another cent. We are, you've received your last payment from us. We are terminating you and this is it. And there were no niceties involved. No thank you for your service. None of that stuff. It's an ugly divorce and Texas has taken a hard line. What couldn't have been an easy process for the leadership over there, for Kevin Eltai, for Chris Del Conte. But in my mind, guys, I think they made the right call. Sometimes you just got to move on. This was not going to be, it wasn't going to be an easy process if they retained Chris Beard. They don't like his explanation. They don't like the police report. And so I just think it was a smart move to break ties and go in a different direction.
Cedric, thanks for being there when the story broke and also today when the story breaks in a different way. Appreciate your time and thank you very much.
My pleasure, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman on Today's News earlier, about 2 hours or so ago, and Chris Beard fired for cause and also fired by the University of Texas. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense, why they made the move and the damaging of the brand, or was it what do they say about the NFL and the Shield?
The Shield,
it's kind of the same concept there. And now hearing it the way that he put it as far as Beard's attorney's behavior, I can get why he seems to be lashing out. He's got to do that for his client, but just as an outside observer, I took that the wrong way. I was like, it doesn't sit well with me, but I understand he's got to do his job. And like I said, I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He's a highly paid, highly powered attorney, and it does sound like they'll probably try to do what they can. But I don't know how much room they'll really have. But I think Texas did make the right decision.
When we come back, Max Olson, college football senior writer for theathletic.com, the championship game just around the corner, and that's next on 365 Sports. The city of Woodway, they're having a concert, and I've got some information. Bottom line, you can always go to discoverwoodway.com for whatever you want when it comes to hotels, events, particular amenities they have, the Carling Bright Arboretum, the pavilion, all of that. It's just special. Discover Woodway is going to have two-time Grammy award-winning band Ozu Motley live on February the 1st at the Pavilion Event Center in Woodway. Tickets are on sale by going to the website, discoverwoodway.com. In partnership with the Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival, Ozu Motley will be live in Woodway. That's on February the 1st. So don't miss it. Grammy Award-winning Oza Motley live at the Pavilion Event Center in Woodway. Tickets available right now. Go to discoverwoodway.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Max Olson, senior college football writer for theathletic.com, with us most every Thursday in the 4 o'clock hour, joins us on 365 Sports. And Max, I know it's not a football story, but what was your reaction with so much going on with the national championship on the Chris Beard story that came down earlier this afternoon?
Yeah, not surprised by the outcome there. He figured there was plenty there to fire him with cause. I'm not really sure what else Texas could do in that situation. I think it would have been pretty gross of them to try to ride this out and make the case that he should stay. And I don't know how you how you recruit players and kind of keep moving forward with that guy as your head coach. So, yeah, not shocked by that. Obviously, they had to let things play out a little bit, but Texas has got to go out and find someone to replace Chris Beard, which never would have guessed that'd be the case a year ago. But certainly with the arena they've built and the recruiting they've done, you would think, I'm no college basketball expert, but you would think that's a pretty attractive job.
When they hand out the team that has the best transfer portal each year, they ought to give them a picture, like a trophy that's you because
Max
of what
Olson Award?
The Max Olson Award for transfer portal success.
You think like I should be making like medals and sending them out here at the end of the offseason or something?
I think you should because you are all over it. You do an incredible job. And then today, perhaps maybe ultimate in Sam Hartman with Wake Forest heading to Notre Dame. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're in terms of like transfers this offseason that impact the 2023 season and who contends, I'm not sure there's a bigger one than Sam Hartman. At least at this point in the year, obviously there's a lot more guys that are going to transfer. But yeah, that was one that there was a lot of speculation around Sam Hartman for quite a while since the season ended. You knew that there were some NIL collectives that wanted to make an offer to Sam Hartman that he couldn't refuse, and that so he's one of these guys that like you could go pro and maybe be a mid to late round pick. Or maybe there's a lot of benefits to coming back and playing one more season in college. So Sam Hartman decides to go in the portal and goes to Notre Dame, which, you kind of knew that they were in the market, and they made that very clear. And that's why Drew Pine left and transferred to Arizona State. And so I think it's a great situation for them because obviously Tyler Buckner missed pretty much the entire season. And so he gets another year to develop, and you get a guy who, is Wake Forest all-time leading passer and one of the most prolific passers in ACC history, to come into a program and really give them a lift. I think that it's certainly one of those guys that raises expectations for the Irish in 23.
Who would you say is the second on that list? Because there have been some guys going places. I don't think we've seen like a USC type, collection this year, but there have been some big moves outside of Sam Hartman.
Yeah, there have. I mean, there was a big one that went in today. Jordan Birch, the defensive lineman from South Carolina, who was a top 10 recruit a couple of years ago, a local recruit who's a big win for South Carolina that, he's in the portal now. He was a starter this year in a pretty disruptive one. The early speculation, the buzz there is on Oregon, but you're going to have, I would think Georgia and Alabama and Oklahoma, Clemson, all these schools that recruited him before coming back in the picture here. I think that the school that's done, there's a few that have done some really great work here so far. Michigan would be one. They've brought in some really talented players to boost their offensive line for next year, adding a really good linebacker in Ernest Hausman from Nebraska and Josiah Stewart, the pass rusher from Coastal Carolina. I think that Florida State is killing it in the portal as they have the past few years. I think TCU's done a great job. UCLA, there's plenty of examples here of coaching staffs that have been really aggressive and I think have really upgraded their talent already.
Max, just like we all predicted, TCU's playing for the national title coming up here in a few days. But, I mean, in all seriousness, what an incredible journey. Obviously, they benefited greatly from the transfer portal, particularly on defense, and have already seen some dividends paying off to this run for next year in the transfer portal, and guys like JoJo Earl, et cetera. But your thoughts on the Frogs getting to this point, and obviously there's a lot of mixed, feelings, opinions on – will Georgia blow them out? Does TCU have a chance again? Where do you stand on that and just the whole storyline here with Sonny Dykes and company?
What do you think we could have made, guys, if we put some money on TCU winning the Big 12 and making the playoff?
We would have been the ones who ran college football.
Oh, man.
We would have the money to develop.
We probably could have bought Twitter, Like we'd be loaded.
or maybe even easily bought Tesla. I don't know. One of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was. I covered the Fiesta Bowl, and that was just a tremendous experience. One of the best games I've ever seen in person, and just so impressed by how resilient TCU was in that game. And obviously, they were able to just make a bunch of game-changing plays there, and then hang on. That was a stressful ride for TCU fans, but just so impressed by that team and how well coached they are, and man, just being around them in Phoenix, it's a really special group. It's a very just a bunch of guys that really get it, great coaches. You couldn't be happier for them and what they've been able to accomplish this year. And to me, going and playing Georgia, I don't think that should diminish. However this goes, it shouldn't diminish what they've done. I mean, right? It's not like they were building this thing this year to go beat Georgia and win a national championship. This is house money at this point. And I think that they're just going to need a lot of things to break the right way for them, or Georgia to make a lot of mistakes like we saw Michigan make. But I think the line's probably about right. I think probably calling it a 2-score game is probably realistic, and just in terms of what Georgia's been this year. But I think that getting Kendre Miller back is important, and we'll see how that shakes out. But TCU is going to have a plan, and this is a group that has been resilient all year, and I can't wait to see how they respond to kind of this David versus Goliath situation here.
Max, last year Cincinnati was in the playoff. This year TCU was in and won. And in 2 years we're going to the 12-team playoff format. Is this a good omen of things to come for teams that are not classic blue bloods?
Yeah, I think we're giving them more opportunity. I know some people can look at that and say, "Oh, there's some luck involved with that." That maybe some teams were down at the right years, and that's how these teams got into the 4 or whatever, right? But I think that you're seeing that when we give these programs, first of all, when we give these schools an opportunity to come up to the Power 5 level, my goodness, we're talking about TCU and we're talking about Cincinnati, and Utah's been to back-to-back Rose Bowls now. Like, if you're clearly seeing these programs, if you let them into the party, they can mess around and win and be really, really successful. And so that's been awesome to see. But yeah, I think that I think that the 12-team playoff, will surprise teams win the national championship every year in that thing? No, it's probably not going to happen all the time, because it's going to be a pretty tough run, and you're probably going to have to win some road games and stuff like that to make it to the championship. But I do think having more access, this is the beauty of it, is we get some really surprising outcomes and some teams that are not just totally loaded with blue chips that have a chance to go win big games.
Max, we haven't asked you, I don't think, in the last couple of times much about Matt Rule in Nebraska, and obviously picked up some more commits the other night. Just what's the early feeling on the job he's done, and kind of what's forming, the puzzle pieces all coming together for him?
Yeah, I think pretty cautious optimism here in Nebraska about the Matt Rule era so far. I think the hiring of Tony White, the Syracuse DC, was impressive. A guy that he hadn't really worked with a ton, but a guy who's done a great job with the 3-3-5 before. I think that staff-wise, it's coming together about how you would expect, obviously with some familiar faces from Carolina and stuff like that. And, I think the recruiting between the high school and transfers, they've hit the ground running. I know they've got a bunch of visitors coming in this weekend, and, it's just, this is where it's at for Nebraska. It's just got to be a day-by-day process of trying to get the right people in there and trying to change the culture. And I think that so far so good. But Matt Rule has got to be spending with all the stuff that they've had to do here in the last 2 months just to kind of get this thing off the ground.
Yeah, they had a couple of commitments, one of those all-star games, which has probably been a while for that program. And, in fact, you used the word process. That's a word he likes to use. Coaches, a lot of them do, but I remember that was one of the words he used when he first came to Baylor. Your thoughts about overall the transfer portal. Now, there's different times when people can enter it, right? And then there's certain times. What now is next? What's the next wave in the transfer portal?
Yeah, so the window for entering the transfer portal, that's going to close here in about 2 weeks. So we've got about 2 more weeks here of guys making that move. Obviously, grad transfers can go in at any time, so we'll still see stuff happening past that deadline. But really, it's supposed to slow down from mid-January till May, and so that gives people a chance to go through spring and figure out what their situation is. This week, it's going to be a little bit nuts because they carved out a period in the recruiting calendar this year, which I think is helpful. They didn't have this in the past, but they carved out this time from January 4th to January 8th, where mid-year transfers can go take visits to schools. And so you're going to see a lot of official visits and a lot of very quick recruiting processes and quick commitments here happening in the next week or two, because guys need to get on campus. They need to get enrolled at their next school if they want to go through spring ball. And so some of these players that are popping up in the portal this week, probably only going to take 1 or 2 visits, probably just one-day visits, and make pretty quick decisions here. So, it'll be interesting to see, are there any big surprise names like Jordan Birch was today? And then kind of very quickly, we're going to find out where they're going.
Is Bobby Petrino the answer for Jimbo Fisher in College Station?
Are you okay?
What a great question. Let me think about that one. Just fascinating. It's just fascinating. Can we get can the FCC network do the Hard Knocks show for them this year or something?
Right.
Can we get that going?
Man.
I think we all want to see how that dynamic works. And it's interesting. My assumption as this search for an OC dragged on and on, you kind of wondered was he going to hire somebody that it didn't really it was at some point, is it kind of irrelevant who he hires because he's just going to run his offense? It's still going to be his thing, but they've got somebody else to help out. And so it's interesting that he would go with Bobby Petrino, who obviously is going to be a more strong-willed guy than most other coaches they could have hired, and someone who has his own system. And, will it look like Jimbo Fisher's thing? Will it look like what Bobby Petrino wants to do? Will it be a merger, which is always kind of messy when coaches try to do that? It's absolutely fascinating. I'm glad he did it purely because we get to watch what happens.
Does Jimbo not worry about, or he should be, but with him, he's cantankerous. He's got DJ Durkin on the staff, and that's already pretty caustic nationally. Steve Adazio and now Bobby Petrino. Does he not really care how this is going to work out culture-wise?
No. What? I don't know what else you want me to
Clearly
say.
not. Yeah.
Did it, or do you think it occurred to him and he just said, "No"?
Unclear.
Yeah.
No, I think sometimes guys like him just think, that guy's a really good ball coach, and that guy's. I don't care what his past is, and I don't care what anybody says. I know this guy's good at coaching. I've seen it with my own eyes, and so that's how some of these guys are. And I think it's I don't know. It just kind of feels like it's going to be an extreme outcome no matter what, right? It's either going to be extremely successful or it's going to be extremely dysfunctional.
Found somebody that might be able to tell him, no, I'm doing this. This is why you hired me. That kind of thing, too. Not just a young guy that would probably bow down to him. And who knows, they'll probably scratch and claw, and that's good. They need to find a way to get A&M better if they can. Thank you, Max. Appreciate you as always, man. Max Olson, senior college football writer for theathletic.com. And Georgia TCU, Monday night. Hey, tomorrow we're going to hear from a lot of different people. Mac Rhodes will join us tomorrow, and we'll have more on what's happening with one of the women's basketball players at Baylor, by the way, Dre Edwards, who's in a position of waiting for a waiver for her to be able to play. He's talked about that before, but now the latest on that. And then, of course, Jerome Tang, among others. Rhett Lashley, the head coach at SMU. So we've got a busy schedule tomorrow on this show.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, but I bet Jerome Tang's people get a call from certain people down in certain state capital after today's news. I don't think that would surprise
after the
anybody.
Show he put on and his
one
team
single
did?
bit.
Yeah.
Yep. They just saw him, and I think that would be a logical call to make. And so K-State fans, they just need to prepare for schools in general that are going to be calling now with Jerome Tang and the start that he's already off to. Obviously, there's a lot of games still left to play in this season, and who knows how high he can take Kansas State, but the culture seems to be thriving there. The energy levels are high. K-State fans are loving it, and he's done a terrific job, and none of us are surprised by it. But obviously a lot of story left to be written, but get ready, K-State, to play defense because there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be eyeing Jerome Tang and that juice that he brings to the table. But he's doing a great job with the Wildcats, and really excited for him.
I wouldn't take him completely off of Texas's list if he continues to have a good year.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That's what I meant.
Although I don't think I think the good news for Baylor fans that don't want to see Jerome Tang, who will forever be a beloved figure in Waco, go to Austin is that he's only been doing this for a year, and there are other guys that they're probably going to take big swings at, like Eric Musselman and Nate Oates and probably Jay Wright, like you heard, they're probably going to do that before they get to, first year and second year head coaches.
No, for sure. But they're not stupid. They're very smart. That's why they're who they are. And yeah, he will definitely get vetted, I'm sure. But yeah, no, if it was typical Texas, then yes, they're going to start with Jay Wright and then just go down the list. But I would definitely think there's going to be some kicking of the tires there. But that's another worry for another day for fans of K-State. Just thrilled to see them having the success that they are. And it's going to be a big-time game between Tang and Drew coming up this weekend. And
tell you what, man, Baylor men, I mean, you talked about some of it earlier, but they're not walking into this game with a whole lot of confidence and a whole lot of swagger at the moment. So,
and not a whole lot of defense against a team that just scored 116 points against the 13th ranked defense in America in the University of Texas. So that will be an interesting game, and I'm sure that Scott Drew would like to have had a better situation than to hosting K-State. Win that game, and you get yourself at least back in the saddle. You don't 0-3 in the Big 12. Paul, what year was it? 12? What year was it when Baylor was 2-8 in the conference and dug themselves out of a hole and then made a pretty damn good run?
Yeah,
the elite, I think, to the Sweet 16.
Let's see. Let's see. The year of the Bear was they were
12.
good. The 12. So I want to say it was 11 or 13.
Yeah,
it was
one
13.
of the, yeah.
Well, and then another year was after that was one of those early exits.
That was a different Big 12 too. Basketball. It's not this one.
Thank you for saying that, because you're right. That Big 12 was good. This Big 12 is just a battering ram. All right, Nicole Arbach has something that she put up, a story. Michigan football under NCAA investigation, expects to receive notice of allegations. Now, keep reading here. Says it's relatively minor infractions, but investigation also centers on the program's response. So there's a story, and I know theathletic.com is a paid site. I pay for it. I think it's very well worth it. But they'll be interesting. And then you have some of the smoke out there about Harbaugh and what's going to happen with him. And
he put out a graphic today saying that
I was going to have this off the radar, but go ahead, because it's go ahead. I don't need it.
He put out a graphic saying, "Look, he said everything you wanted to say, except there's one sentence in there well, no one knows what's going to happen in the future." So I do credit him for being honest that right now he's planning on being the coach at Michigan, but no one knows what's going to happen in the future, which he might as well have not said anything, because now it's well, if the Walmart-owned Broncos give you a bunch of money, are you going to go there? He's not ever won a championship at either level. He's gotten close. Now at Michigan, he's gotten knocked on the door, but not gotten to the last game, and he's been in the Super Bowl in the NFL, and I don't think either job is easy. But right now, for a lot of coaches, the NFL might be an easier job just because it's more straightforward on what your job is.
I tend to believe that it's definitely an easier job at this point. I mean, at least it's far less stressful. Let's put it that way. It's far less stressful of a job. I mean, there's high stakes and all that, but in terms of what all is on your plate, NFL coaches don't ever have to hit the road to go recruiting. No, in the spring, they'll have scouts that go out and they'll show up on all these different, stadiums on Saturdays and check guys out. But Jim Harbaugh's not doing that unless he just chooses to. And so, if you don't want to have to go to little town after little town to big town to little town to chase down a hopeful wide receiver and coax him into coming to Michigan, and if you're tired of that whole game or rallying NIL dollars or whatever the case may be, then you might want to look at the other side and the greener pastures that you once knew and you had success with there as well. But his statement, he said he was aware of the rumors and speculation over the last few days. College and NFL teams have great interest in all of our personnel, from players to coaches to staff, and I believe that's a testament to the strength of our University of Michigan football program. As I stated in December, while no one knows what the future holds, I expect that I will be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. So while no one knows what the future holds, I expect that I will be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. Said he's talked to the president and AD and appreciates their support, and their mission continues, and they'll be preparing for the 2023 season, and he ends it with, as our legendary coach Bo Schembechler said, and this is all bold and in gold, those who stay will be champions. But he absolutely does not maintain or really give you 100% confidence that he will, in fact, be coaching Michigan next year. It sounds very much like a guy who needed to address it and recognize that it's out there, and then also kind of calm the waters as best he can. But in absolutely no way does that ensure that he's at Michigan. So, they just had a great run. Obviously, very disappointing loss to TCU, especially when so many clearly were of the opinion that they would be winning that football game and be playing for a national title. So that's a bummer, but did beat Ohio State, did win the Big Ten. There were some good things. All that being said, I would absolutely hate to be a Michigan fan having to do this stupid yo-yo every single offseason of, is he going to be the guy or is he not going to be the guy? Like, as good as he is, that wears on you, man. And you just want to – it's like that's why a lot of people can't stand the transfer portal. It's not that they're even upset about guys getting paid or the independence that these players now have and their ability to make decisions. I think just people want to know who's on the freaking team. And you want to know that, like, hey, this freshman we got – he's going to be here. We can enjoy him and watch him grow for the next 3 years to 4 years. But now, if he doesn't get enough playing time or else somebody gives him a phone call, that guy that you were so pumped about on signing day is gone after one season to your arch rival. And so, that just uncertainty, I think, it makes some of the stuff more exciting. It certainly makes storylines on this show a little more exciting at times because, like, there's the Sam Hartman story today, But at the same time, for a fan, it's like, what are you sinking your claws into? Because that great quarterback could be gone next year, and he could be playing across town.
You're you're on a roller coaster, emotional roller coaster,
constant roller coaster. And at least the one thing you can have is your head coach, and know that that's going to be, as long as we got our great head coach and his staff. But he's all over the place every offseason, so it's maddening.
If he comes out and says I'm not going anywhere, we've seen coaches do that and they lied. So, but yeah, by the way, Sir blah, 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 NCAA investigation, ? That still means something?
Yeah.
When we come back, we're going to hear from Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, and the Cowboys get ready for a game that will be maybe interesting, depending on whatever else is going on in the NFL, a game against Washington, who they are done for the year after the loss they had to Cleveland. Also, Craig's off the radar. And Paul and Craig in the 5 o'clock hour breaking down kind of a summary of the Big 12 and the bowl games and the season, and then also Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress is a fantastic dentist. He has also been there on the front with some of our soldiers when they've needed dental work. He's helped them. So imagine how good he is if he needs to help you or me, and he has helped me many different times. Times in which I just had my regular every 6 months teeth cleaning. Times when it's been kind of an emergency after hours when I had a terrible pain in my lower bottom right molar. Times when he has given me advice on what I needed to do with a tooth that was cracked and it was not doing well. It was not going to get any better. It needed to be pulled and, in fact, needed implants. And when he told me that, I was like, what? But I've already been through that entire process that takes a few months, and he helped me along the way, and we appreciate him for that. I do. Stonewood Dental with an incredible staff that works all the time, making sure you're fine, making sure you get reminders about every appointment you have to the point where you're like, today, tomorrow. It's unbelievable how they work. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com with us right now on 365 Sports. Cowboys have Washington coming up at a mid-afternoon game on Sunday in a game that it may have implication or might have implications. It might have heavy implications. They'll know a little bit, I guess, before they play. Mickey, thanks for your time. Is this kind of a strange scenario in your opinion?
Well, yeah, and it kind of made it even stranger since they decided to start all the games that have some ramifications at the same time. So I guess you're going to have a scoreboard coach during the game to kind of let you know what's going on with the Giants and Philadelphia. And then to some extent, although this is the long shot, Arizona playing San Francisco.
Yeah, that I think for both Dallas and Philly, right? That is the horrible luck of the draw that, okay, as long as San Francisco loses, we're both still in this thing, but if they lose and the Cowboys take it out, and of course if the Eagles lose, it's all a mess for them too. So you can't even hope that the Cardinals would really win that game realistically, given the fact that they're on their 11th quarterback right now, Mickey?
Sounds that way, but you know how many quarterbacks are San Francisco on right now?
Yeah,
their third.
Yeah,
and the Eagles on their second, and now we find out Washington's on their third. So there's a lot of backup quarterbacks playing. I guess the Cowboys were lucky when they had to have their backup. It was games 2 through 6, not at the end of the year when you're trying to get into the playoffs or win some playoff games.
So, Mickey, how do you think the Giants in particular will handle this? Because the only thing that they can control is if they win the game or not, and the things that happen around them just depend on their opponent and where their plane is flying next week.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, Dable acted like he was going to play this game. So we'll see what they do. And, if they kind of research their history and go back to 2007, if you guys remember, they had a wild card berth wrapped up, but they decided they were going to play that last game of the season against New England. Now, they didn't win it, but they lost something like 35-34, something crazy like that. And all of a sudden, they were sitting there going, maybe we're not all that bad. And they got some confidence. They went and won the first round playoff game, and then they come up against the Cowboys, who had the first number one seed in that first round bye, and they beat the Cowboys. And guess what? They didn't lose another game. They went and won the Super Bowl. And they credit it to getting confidence in that game against New England. So there's something to be said for confidence and momentum, and maybe not just having a layup in the last game of the season if it doesn't have any meaning from a tangible standpoint, from a record standpoint and standing standpoint.
Mickey, the Cowboys obviously had a hell of a run, and the win against Philadelphia put them in a position where this weekend matters. And obviously, for Philadelphia, it sure as hell matters because they used to be coasting into the number one seed, and they have to take care of some business. The quarterback play of Dak Prescott, I know it's a lightning rod. I get it. That's the way it is. Quarterbacks everywhere. But I got a question for you. Is his mobility starting to open some things up for them on offense? It seems like he's gotten, maybe even for 4 or 5 weeks, started to run a little bit more.
Yeah, and sometimes out of necessity, right? And then other times, if they sometimes call one. And I'm thinking, when everybody was debating, well, you don't want them taking hits, and I'm with that. But if you're inside the 20 or you're inside the 10, the collisions are less devastating if you call a quarterback's running play, right? If you're at the 7-yard line, you're only going to have 4 yards of momentum, and the defense is only going to have 4 yards of momentum to come up and hit you, right? So I think that they can take advantage of that, at least plant the seed that it's like, okay, we better watch out for this. I just don't think you want them recklessly running. I mean, go look at all the quarterbacks that aren't playing right now. A bunch of them are running guys. And if you're going to run, you're going to run the risk of getting hit and getting hurt. It just happens in this league. So I think within reason, if they want him to try and run, but he's awfully important throwing the ball, isn't he?
Yeah, and Mickey, that I don't know, I'll call it newfound, but the level of aggressiveness on offense has certainly gone up this year from years past with the Cowboys. Now, with that has come some turnovers, but I do think that the turnovers that the Cowboys have committed have kind of gotten skewed publicly in a way that is detrimental to Dak. Certainly they're going to happen when you're more aggressive, but also a lot of those aren't completely on him, especially when he hits a guy right in the hands. Some of those interceptions have been fantastic throws that just weren't caught.
I told Mike McCarthy today they need to come up with a new stat, team interception, like they do in the NBA with team rebounds. Let's have a team interception when you decide the ball popped off a guy's hand that should be caught, or the wide receiver doesn't run the proper route on some of those trust routes where you're trusting the guy to cross the DB's face and you go behind him. And I bet you he's had at least 5 of those, maybe a half a dozen of the 14. And so, but the quarterback gets blamed for it. And, that's why I always said the quarterback gets paid and gets the girl, right? But there's a price to pay for it. So yeah, no, you're right. And quarterbacks are going to have interceptions. I get it. Now the ones you don't want are like the bad decisions, like the one he tried to fit into Schultz when he really wasn't open in this past game. But some of the other ones, yeah, they're bouncing off players' hands that they got to catch them. But that's okay, because you know what? As it turned out, now I know it cost them the Jacksonville game, but they've been able to overcome those and still put 30-some points on the board. That's how good this offense is, providing they can stay healthy. And unfortunately now they're going to have to make some adjustments on the offensive line, losing starting center Tyler Biadasz probably till they hope, is to the playoffs, and then he'd be ready to go. But yeah, you better score when you get to the playoffs. That's all I got to say, because you're playing other teams that have good quarterbacks and good offenses generally, and they're going to score points too. So you better put some points up. And sometimes the defense can't hold those big offenses to 20 points, 24 points. To me, you better be putting 30 up if you think you're going to win in the playoffs.
Mickey, one more thing on Ron Rivera. Seems to be an incredibly good man. We know what he's beaten cancer. He's was on that incredible Bears team as a player and has been very successful at times, although really hasn't been able to move the needle too much in Washington. Were you stunned at his reaction to not knowing the playoff scenario when asked about possibly putting Heineke in for Wentz when it started poorly?
When I read about it, I said, oh, he was being coy. And then when I saw it, I'm going, oh, he wasn't. He really thought that, right? That was somewhat surprising and somewhat unfortunate. But that came out right after the game, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of times, coaches, they're so into the game, they're not thinking straight. And I don't know, maybe he didn't take time to consider what the question was. But and if I did, I wouldn't have been that honest, right? It was like, oh yeah, that occurred, something like that. So that was somewhat unfortunate, but I hope that doesn't, kind of cloud their decision on what they want to do going forward with him. Because look, you take a job and you ain't got a quarterback. I'm sorry, you ain't got a quarterback. Heineke's nice, that's fine. I think they've seen the best and worst of Wentz, and they're going to have to make a decision. And I don't care how good a coach you are, you can't fake the quarterback position.
Mickey, thank you very much. Another season, regular season, about to end. Cowboys, and appears to be Tampa Bay, but who knows after this weekend? The 18-week season, right? But 17 games about to end. The Cowboys have had one heck of a run. And man, after the loss of Dak early in the year, and you wondered about would they dig themselves a hole and what going back at it, what Cooper Rush did. In the end, Mickey, they've outperformed what I think anyone, even the most positive people, could have thought. Now, again, it depends on what they do in the postseason.
And, one of the things that they decided to start the season, and I don't know if this sounds corny or not, but their motto was resilience. To the point, David, when the players have to walk from the locker room to the training table where they have their meals, on the second floor facade facing them as they're walking that direction, there's a collage of pictures, and in capital letters, big capital letters over the pictures, it says resilience. And you know what? They've been pretty resilient. As you pointed out, surviving playing 5 games without Dak, surviving playing 12, 13 games without Pro Bowl offensive tackle Tyron Smith, surviving the early season without Michael Gallup. And it's just kind of been one thing after another that they've had to overcome, but they've been good enough to overcome those things. That's what's been the amazing thing to me has been their resiliency. And, we may have to see it a little bit more going into the playoffs.
Mickey Spagnola with us Thursdays, DallasCowboys.com. We appreciate his time. Cowboys at 3:25 kick against Washington, and the Commanders again with another season. Looked like they had a pretty good run about 3 weeks ago, and then they blew a tire. When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar. And I've just sent Craig and Paul an email. Garrett, I think you got it as well, on Jeremiah Donati from TCU, his response to something from Darren Rovell about the tickets and stuff with TCU. We might want to bring that up in the 5 o'clock hour. I will be leaving after Off the Radar for a banquet that I'm going to go speak at, so I'll be here for a little bit longer. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com online, no matter where you are. If there is a Marco's Pizza near you, They can deliver, or you can go by and pick up. You can go online and use the various codes that they have, from Pepperoni Magnifico. And remember the last one that I mentioned I guess it was on Tuesday, Marco's Pizza had a special. When you go and look at 30% off all menu price items or pizzas, app and online only. Not call up and get it or have them deliver it, but you can order it online or call them, app and only. 30% off all Marco's Pizza menu price pizzas. Use the code GREAT30. So you can use it online or the app, and that gets you the 30% off. Of course, large, 1 topping, 2 toppings, in this particular case, whatever you want. Pepperoni's favorite pizza, large pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, Hewitt, and Robinson. Bob Mock's the great owner of those particular franchises. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment, and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome back into 365 Sports. Time for a little off the radar, just taking a look at some stories that we have not already touched on, or they're a little bit outside of our normal discussions, although sometimes just some stories fall through the cracks because of some timing. And so there are a couple here that are college football related or something that we've kind of discussed a little bit. For example, Damar Hamlin. That's very much top of mind, I think, still for people after the other night and the scary situation that unfolded on Monday Night Football with his collapse after the hit from T. Higgins and obviously the pause in the game and eventually the cancellation of the game outright. He is not, in the clear, so to speak, just yet. There's still a long way to go in his recovery, but there is a lot of good news that is starting to pour out in regards to the status of the health of Damar Hamlin. As a matter of fact, today, doctors at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center announced a substantial improvement in his condition over the past 24 hours. They said his neurological condition and function is intact, and he's beginning to awaken. That includes opening his eyes. He's been able to move his hands and his feet as well. He will remain in ICU, but they are encouraged by the response that he's showing, and he still has significant progress he needs to make, they said, but the progress over the last 24 hours marks a really good turning point in his ongoing care. He's been responsive to questions. He's been responsive to commands. He's even asked some questions of his own, and that included asking, did they win? And, that's just, man, that's a football guy right there, right? Like going through all that, and then finally can talk, and he's asking whether they won or not. And so
that's good news.
Yeah, they had to explain that. Meanwhile, his father has actually come out because there was this outpouring of support and charity when everybody discovered that Damar Hamlin had a foundation. And so people started donating as soon as they are made aware of the foundation that he has to benefit kids. And 225,000+ people have raised more than $7 million since Monday night for his foundation, the Chasing M's Foundation. But at this point, his father has said, thank you. The support is generous, but he now is urging people to donate to the University of Cincinnati Medical Trauma Center, where Damar is getting care. So that's another piece to this story as well, which I thought was very classy and smart of his father. But it's a little bit of a roundup. There's a lot more kind of going on, obviously, but good news all the way around as it appears.
Neelish Goswami, Dr. Goswami, who was on with us Tuesday, he was talking about neurologically intact, new neurologic issues, and he was like, this is phenomenal news. I mean, of course it is. It's what maybe you didn't know if we would ever hear that, but he was contacting me earlier because he was on our show Tuesday, and he said it's just incredible news.
Yeah, I think everybody's just overjoyed and relieved for Damar Hamilton. And if you're a football Hamlin, I'm sorry, I've done that twice. Damar Hamlin, and the $7 million is amazing. That's going to set up that charity, which was just him trying to act locally. That's all it was. His goal was I just want to make things a little bit better for a few kids in my hometown if I can. And now it's set up to do a lot of great things. And just I saw this a couple times from medical personnel on Twitter. They said, look, if outside of being in an actual hospital when you have cardiac arrest, an NFL stadium is actually maybe the best place you could be, because there are so many medical personnel on site, because each team has a doctor, each team has, people that work for that doctor and medical staff that are all trained in CPR, plus you have EMTs and all these people who can do all that. And it really stood to be true in Damar Hamlin's case. And it's just so great. I do think it's funny that, my first reaction, if I was his family or one of the doctors, he said, did we win? I'd be like, buddy, you're awake now and it's Thursday.
That's a win.
That. But
he probably didn't. Was he won the game of life was actually what he responded.
Yeah. So, he, but yeah, it was just so, such a relief to me when I saw that this morning. I was like, oh man, it's just, you sit there and worry about this. And, a guy who had to do that, especially living your dream like that, to have such a tragic and scary moment. But, I think it's good that we've all gotten to learn about a great human being, apparently, in Damar Hamlin in the last few days.
Yeah, no doubt. So a lot of positivity there to share, and that's great news that he's seemingly recovering. Obviously, there's a long way to go, as I mentioned, but there is some bright spots, and hopefully there will be a number of donations that now go the way of the hospital taking care of him. But in terms of, the game, that is still a question of, like, how does the NFL, do the redo of Bengals and Bills, or what do they do with that? Adam Schefter was on TV today, and he was talking a bit about, Damar Hamlin, but also said that he thinks the NFL is not going to try to replay this football game because it's just got some bad juju attached to it. And so they could, according to him, they might be working towards doing a neutral AFC championship game site, or a top seed choosing between either a bye or home field, and that would face the number 2 seed. The number 2 seed would get whatever is not picked between having a bye or home field, I guess is how it would work. But they're trying to go through solutions, but it does not sound like they're going to try to replay that game simply because it's too fresh, I think, for a lot of people, and so they're looking to work around having to go that route.
Well, if the Chiefs do win on Saturday, I think the home field advantage question is moot, because both the Bills and the Bengals needed the Chiefs to lose for them to get home field advantage.
What about the second round?
But the second round is what would be in question if you are talking about the Bills and the Bengals potentially playing each other. Or look, if you're the Ravens and the Bengals, and you beat the Bengals this week, and they have one less game than you and could have had one less loss, that affects where they are in the playoffs and all of that. So there's a lot more that they're going to have to come to an agreement on. But yeah, I don't know how you replay the game, because you're going to ask the players that, and the players are going to be like, can we please just move on from Monday night as quickly as we can? I don't think they're going to fight anything on home field advantage and all that. I think that fighting for that would seem kind of petty in this moment.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that game's probably not going to be played, but there will be a solution found. So just for that side of the story, obviously the more important thing is Hamlin and his health. And as one of the doctors said, it appears that all the cylinders are firing. And he was asking questions and humorously asking about the outcome of the game and all that. So great news on that front. And somebody who unfairly really got just attacked by very ugly people was T. Higgins, because he was, involved in the play. And, I think it's just trolls and just, again, very ugly people who have nothing truly better to do. But he got some criticism. There was a couple of comments that sort of went semi-viral, I guess, trying to almost place blame on him for just simply playing the game. It's not like he went out of his way, not like it was a dirty hit. And just for what it's worth, Higgins said that he's doing good. He's in a good place right now. He feels good knowing that Hamlin's okay and that he's doing better, and it certainly makes him feel better as well. So it's something that he's being very supportive, but there's a lot of ugly people online. But that was his side of the story. Is just he's talked to Hamlin's mother. He's gotten support from the family, and they're in no way, placing blame at him. So all the way around, it's just good news, and it's part of the game of football and the risks that you take. So there's the update on Damar Hamlin, and we will see how the NFL moves forward with whatever they do scheduling wise. You mentioned some things about transfer portal and guys coming back and all of that. There was a couple of others. Ronnie Bell, Michigan, announced that he's going to be coming back. Kansas State as well. I saw this from can't remember where I saw this originally. Ronnie Bell declared for the NFL draft. Coming back is apparently the entire Kansas State offensive line. They're going to have like almost the entire two deep that will be returning. Now, we saw with a school like Baylor, that didn't necessarily make much of a difference ultimately for them this past season. But K-State is geared up to have their top 8 offensive linemen coming back next season, according to Chris Kleiman. Obviously, they will be losing Deuce Vaughn after his announcement yesterday. But Michigan also losing Ronnie Bell, but another return, Dylan Gabriel, which I didn't know if we were going to get an announcement or if that was even something that needed to be said. But he did come out and announce that he will be returning to Oklahoma next season. So your thoughts on... I don't know. I figured it was the case anyways. Yeah. It didn't really come as much of a surprise, but I guess it's something that needed to be said, or it's something that they told him to say to get some positive news out there. But your thoughts on Dylan Gabriel being back?
You know what? My thoughts are I didn't know what year he was. I mean, I didn't. I mean, could have been a third-year guy or a ninth-year guy. I don't even know anymore. But yeah. I'm glad for Oklahoma and for Jackson Arnold's coming in, but he'll have the lead to that. But I kind of liked him when we had a chance to interview him in July at Big 12 Media Days.
It's great news for Oklahoma, who, I don't know if they will, rally to the point of where they want to be next year, but I do think that they will be better because they'll have an offseason that is a lot smoother than the one that they just had. But I do think it's great also for a team that needs to get some wide receivers and running backs out of the transfer portal for sure to know that, like, hey, your quarterback who's pretty damn good is coming back.
Yeah, I'm with you on the whole eligibility thing, but regardless of if you're a fifth-year senior, a fourth-year junior, whatever, I mean, you still know your eligibility. Like, can he come back? That's important to note. And so, yeah, he was able to come back, obviously. We knew that going in. But I guess there was some question about whether he would return, and so he's made it official that he will be back in Norman next year. I think we touched on a little bit of this from the other day, but there were more bowl game ratings that came out, and obviously the Rose Bowl down tremendously, 39%. From last year. This was Penn State and Utah, with Penn State getting the victory. Last year, Ohio State and Utah, but 39% drop in the Rose Bowl audience, which is pretty significant, obviously. But the previous lows, 13.55 for Stanford, Iowa in 2016. But there is, the thought that obviously the timing of the Rose Bowl being the day after New Year's on a Monday and just all of that being where it was placed was something that probably affected the rating. But as we saw with the semifinals, very good ratings, but the Rose Bowl, a significant drop. The Cotton Bowl as well, hitting a historic low. Tulane and USC averaging just 4.17 million, the smallest audience ever for a New Year's Six game. Previous low had been TCU and Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl back in 2014 that hit 5.01 million. But now we have a new low. Tulane, USC in the Cotton Bowl, just over 4.
It wasn't because it wasn't a great game, and I don't even think it was because Tulane's not, maybe the blue blood, but Monday confused me.
Well, Monday
it was a holiday, and it wasn't.
At Monday at noon Eastern, so
and
it
wasn't New Year's Day.
No, it wasn't New Year's Day. So it was a holiday for some people, but we didn't take it off, so it was just weird. So yeah, I'm not surprised about that. And that's one of the things that you have to look at. And probably one of the reasons that the Rose Bowl was like, look, we're already going to get screwed this year. So we're going to hold on as tightly to this ridiculous rope as we can. But they need to make sure that not only the playoff games are in high value times, but every other game. You don't need to sacrifice the other New Year's Six games for convenience, right? You need to just smartly schedule those things out. And with the playoff, I'm sure they will now because there'll be a lot more weight on it. But, I just think that they probably overthought that, we'll just do it on Monday. Well, you probably would have been better off doing those games on Friday before the playoff games on Saturday instead of, spreading them all out then and pushing everything, The Cheez-It Bowl could have been, that was on Thursday, but those games could have been a day, everything could have been a day earlier to make sure your New Year's Six were the 30th and the 31st, and by the time you move on a Monday, everything's done.
So, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned the exact number, 10.19 million for Penn State and Utah in the Rose Bowl. Like I said, down 39% from Ohio State, Utah the year prior that had over 16 million. And Ohio State is a ratings juggernaut, so that plays into it as well, that they're always going to have a huge, huge number. But that is, 3 million less than the previous low in 2016. So, I think timing and all of what was mentioned played into that for sure. But, just a little bit of the ratings. Meanwhile, the Gator Bowl had a very healthy rating, and you can get into the depths of all these different games. But it was notable that the Rose and Cotton had such low numbers. But, again, there's some reasons as to why. And then, finally, this is truly off the radar. I mentioned in the last segment like this on Tuesday that, Dana Whitey got caught on video from New Year's, getting into a slap fight basically with his wife. She slapped him, he slapped her. He came out with a president of the UFC, which I think most people out there realize, but he made a statement pretty quickly and did not try to make an excuse whatsoever. He just said, hey, I should never have done it. It was my fault. Not making any excuses whatsoever. Like, put me on the cross. Like he wasn't trying to really, make it anything more than it was. But the timing of this is just so crazy because he was supposed to be having a new TV show launching. And do y'all have any idea what that TV show was?
I do.
Power Slap.
Oh my!
It was going to be a show. I don't know if you've ever seen like the viral videos of like I think it's like overseas. I don't know exactly where, but the slap fights and two people just get across from each other and just slap each other. And there's rules and whatever, but they just basically slap each other as hard as they possibly can. And I guess we were about to get our version of that here in the U.S., and Dana White was behind it. But now it looks like that could be postponed. There was a report that could be canceled altogether because of what occurred between Dana White and his wife. But now the folks over in charge of that programming at TBS saying that they were having serious discussions about pulling the plug altogether. But as of now, it looks like officially they're just going to delay it by a week. So hasn't been outright canceled. Still very well could be, given how the news goes, but postponed, if anything. But how about that timing? You get into a slap fight with your wife and then turn around and have to postpone or cancel a show called Power Slap. It's just a small world, and not trying to make light of the situation, but just what are the odds of that? If any TV show that he could have had, it was that one. And so we'll see if that ever sees the light of day.
Here's my thing, and this is how I guess this is part of me being, I don't know, but you see Hollywood actors and actresses or others, they get in trouble right before they're about to launch a movie or something strange just to get the attention. This was not because this was a bad situation, but my God, I mean, that came into my mind, though. I mean, was this a setup? Dana White doesn't need to do that. He's a multimillionaire. But, yeah, that's bizarre.
Well, I don't know. There's a movie about the Flash, the superhero, The Flash, coming out this spring, and that actor has spent the last 2 years doing all kind of weird and terrible things. But the movie was already done, so Warner Brothers kind of has to like soldier ahead with it and like say, oh, he's getting therapy, and then afterwards they'll be like, yeah, he's fired. But
yeah, I still wonder if we'll ever see that movie. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
who are we talking about? I don't know.
His name's Ezra Miller, is the actor that plays the Flash. But he's like, the movie is done. It was done, and then like in the course of them doing all the special effects and things you have to do in a movie such as that size, it takes a long time. He has done a ton of not only just reprehensible and bad things, but also really weird things too.
So you don't think it's going to launch?
Do what?
The movie?
I don't think there's really an interest in the DC movies right now. I mean, they've already retooled the whole thing, and that's part of that old guard and a problem child actor who's not really long for anything beyond that one movie. So I don't see the point of it other than just you're afraid of burning money, but they burn so much that what does it matter? And I understand where your head goes on the PR side of things, but you don't get into a slap fight between a man and a woman to promote anything. And I know you don't know that, but yeah, it's a shame, I guess, that's where some minds go. But that was very real and very obvious from the video that was a moment caught on camera that probably fortunately did get caught on camera. But either way, the timing of it with the show he was getting ready to launch, just very odd. And who knows, like I said, if we ever see that TV show. But those are a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. And every Thursday around 4:45, Off the Radar with a lot of different stories from many things sports are of interest. Speaking of fighting, again, not making light of this, Sean Merriman, former NFL Chargers linebacker, has a new upstart MMA organization called Lights Out Extreme Fighting. He will join us tomorrow in the 5 o'clock hour to discuss his new venture, and we'll have him on, obviously, as well to discuss the NFL season wrapping up with the final weekend coming up this weekend. So that incredible news on Damar Hamlin. We appreciate all of that, and that's fantastic. When we come back, Craig and Paul will discuss, digest, and do a lot when it comes to the Big 12, looking back at the season with one more game to play with TCU Monday night. Also look back at some of the notes from the bowl games, even though it's been a while. That and more. I'm about to head to a banquet to be an MC for Garrett Ross, also for Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie, and everyone else. I'll say goodbye to them now. But the 5 o'clock hour is next on 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Soaking off to the banquet, Craig and I here. And Craig, something we've been meaning to do, and you brought this up earlier in the week, we haven't gotten to, and it's already Thursday. We have not really been through the Big 12 bowl season at all and how people finished and how they looked. And, you know, there's a couple of teams that kind of rated by the portal and opt-outs, but for the most part, everybody was playing with as full of a deck as you wanted. And so I do think we can glean some things from bowl season from the Big 12, like particularly starting with the Armed Forces Bowl. We know that Baylor has a lot of places they're deficient at that they have to get better before spring football starts.
Yeah, fortunately got to take some vacation time right after this one ended. Didn't have to be on air to talk about this one because I think the feeling leaving the stadium, other than just wanting to get warm, was
let's never talk about this game again if we don't have to or relive it. I do want to say, like, as much as we'll probably like dump all over, the weather and just the performance by Baylor, I did see a chart the other day that, calculated with whatever formula. I'm not good with math and all the ratings and everything else that comes out, but it basically showed that Air Force dominated that game, like one of the two most dominant performances of the entire bowl season. So even if you want to look like, well, at halftime it was kind of sort of close, it was clearly all Air Force, and the score wasn't indicative. And then in the second half, they finally made the score look like it was more indicative of the actual showing. So that was one of the two most dominant wins of all of bowl season, was Air Force beating Baylor. So it was as bad as we thought, if not possibly worse. The weather sucked. The weather absolutely ruined what would have otherwise been just a better atmosphere and probably a more fun game to play in. Air Force, obviously, far more well-equipped to deal with a little bit of adversity, especially something like cold. But that just made it just compounded the negativity that was already emanating from the showing itself. It was a bad performance for Baylor. And at the same time, very fitting for just encapsulating the whole season and how the whole season basically felt. But I did want to mention that that's not a knock, the bowl game experience itself on the folks at TCU. They did a great job. That's a cool venue. That's a great stadium. And I thought that they did, really well given the circumstances. And they weren't planning for whatever the temperature was, 14-degree weather, wind chill, -2 or whatever the craziness was. So just shout out. I know we got some listeners that work over there in Fort Worth, and so and at TCU, and I ran into a couple of them. I just want to say we appreciate the hospitality and the setup and all that. That was not an issue. The game itself was not very fun from a Baylor perspective, and it's now led to all these changes. I mean, there were changes before with Ron Roberts, and now we know officially Matt Pallage is the defensive coordinator. That's the change that's happened since then. Obviously, there's been some maneuverings in and out of the transfer portal by Baylor, and they've got a lot more moves to make. They got to hire an inside linebackers coach, and they also have to figure out who's going to run special teams, because I did notice on Pallage's bio, he does have safeties next to it, so he will be DC in safeties. That was to be expected, but just not very good on offense, not very good on defense either. Started out physical, started out with some excitement, I thought, at least defensively, but that went away rather quickly as Air Force just stayed on the field, running it down their throats and even throwing it on them pretty much when they wanted to as well. And just a very forgettable, bad game. Kudos to Air Force. They went out there and did their thing, but for Baylor, I think the best feeling you got of the entire night was once the final whistle blew, you're like, thank God this season is over with, because it was just that kind of a year where the offseason was needed, change is needed, and we're seeing that, happening now. But Air Force dominated, and that was really disappointing to see Baylor go out like that. But that was a very fitting way for them to go out.
Yeah, and we said all week, it was cliche, but does Baylor, with all the things that were going on, the weather and a 3-game losing streak, and guys getting potentially getting the portal, and just the way that the season ended, how much are they invested in this game, and how much do they, even subconsciously to me, because sometimes you're a player, you don't really know that you don't want to be there until, you're in the third quarter, it's 23-7, and what would have normally in normal circumstances been like, well, this is kind of surmountable. Like, we can do, like, that's not a problem, and we've done that before. Seems like, I don't know how we're ever going to see the ball again with this offense who just keeps running it for 4 yards at a time and has, picked over us in the passing game, which we didn't expect. So then all of a sudden your gumption is kind of gone, right? And
I think they came out fine as far as defensively to begin things, but it was the fact that they led the game off with a 3-and-out after all that wait and all this talk, and you're excited about them getting out there, and you realize that it's going to be cold and miserable and Baylor's going to have to run the ball, but they started the game immediately with the 3-and-out, and then Air Force goes on a 15-play touchdown drive that lasts nearly 10 minutes, and you're like, okay, you knew that's what they do. But the fact that you gave up a drive like that right after going 3-and-out, and it was just cold, and it was all of a sudden you could immediately tell, all right, it's going to be like this, and just didn't have a lot of hope after those first few minutes, even though it was still somewhat close at halftime. It was 9-7 at halftime because they scored right before the half, and you thought that would maybe kickstart something, and that was saving grace. It should have really been down 9-0, but that didn't amount to anything. except for just scores later on in the game that were kind of irrelevant at that point. So, yeah, that was a bad performance. And as Dave Aranda said, man, like we're sitting there in TCU's digs in the post game, knowing the season's over with, and he comes walking in there with Dylan Doyle, and I mean, he said it himself, a disappointing end to a disappointing season, and I think that's how everybody feels. So next year, with the moves they've made and will continue to make, it's going to be super interesting to see where in line they fall, because we've seen, 2-7, we've seen 6-6, we've seen 12-2, and now we've seen 6-7. So does that mean they're going to win 10-plus games next year? They don't have the roster right now, it appears, to do that, but we know a lot of things are in the works, so we'll see. But that was a season that, is not going to be one that comes to mind quickly for a lot of Baylor fans when you ask them, like, what was your most enjoyable season? This will not be ever mentioned ever. Most people will look to forget this season, quite frankly.
Craig, you mentioned inside linebackers coach Christian Robinson he's on staff. I mean, he's the new linebackers coach.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So they do have him there. I think the special teams though is who's doing that.
I was blanking on the fact that he filled that role, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so he's in, and thanks to DG for reminding me of that too. I mean, I thought it, and then I thought, well, maybe he's not because sometimes there's inside and outside, and maybe somebody's whatever. But all right, so moving on to the team in the Big 12 that I'm the most confused about, and I think most people are right now, is Oklahoma State and what's going on there. We've talked about it a little bit, but the bowl game was kind of a microcosm of that. Look, you already knew that Richardson was coming into the portal, and the day before that game said he was committing to Baylor.
The day of
the day of Baylor's bowl game, but the day before Oklahoma State's bowl game. So you don't have Dominic Richardson. He's gone. You knew that anyway, and it just showed me that the depth that Oklahoma State has behind, they struggle with that injuries and all that all year long, but they have some real depth issues. Quarterback Garrett Rangel didn't play well against Wisconsin. None of their quarterbacks that were not named Spencer Sanders played well at any point when they had to play this year, and there's a ton of guys in the transfer portal, and this game kind of made you think even more something weird is going on at Oklahoma State, and I just would like to know why it seems this way after it seemed like it was going fine just a year ago.
Yeah, I really don't know. I think that's what everybody's kind of searching to figure out right now. And, you look at that box score, and, Dominic Richardson's already, having made up his mind that he's going to be heading to Baylor. But, now you look at it again, and there's some guys in there, that were part of that box score that have already now – with John Paul Richardson, for example, and plenty of others that have already announced now that they are leaving since then. And so, you kind of like that John Travolta meme of he's like looking around the room for somebody. That's how, or the Will Smith, Fresh Prince of like looking around the empty living room. It's kind of almost like that in a way. So, yeah, I don't know why all this is happening the way that it is. There's been a lot of back and forth speculation on Spencer Sanders and whether or not he's actually going to go somewhere else, or whether, there's been scuttlebutt that maybe he could return, and that now we're into the point of like reading his tweets and trying to decipher them to the point where he had to say like, hey, I'm just a guy. Like, not everything is related to Oklahoma State football. A smiley face is not like indicative of I'm coming back to Stillwater or I'm leaving Stillwater. And so like they're in that period right now of just trying to find any sign or symbol of where this is ultimately leading. But yeah, I mean, Luke Fickell on the sidelines for Wisconsin was really, sort of strange to see him there that quickly and already being, the head coach, I guess, so to speak, even though Jim Leonard was still kind of technically, it was just, we talked about it yesterday with the Wisconsin, it was just kind of weird, not in a bad way, it's just sort of strange. But yeah, like technically Luke Fickell gets his first win against Mike Gundy as Wisconsin head coach, and, they scored a touchdown early in the game, and then after that, I mean, Wisconsin just kind of took control. So I think Oklahoma State is in a very strange spot, to state the obvious. The bowl game didn't really tell me one way or the other which direction they're going, other than it was just also fitting that they lost, because it would have been kind of weird for them to have the season they didn't jump up and beat Wisconsin. That also kind of would have been a bowl season thing, because that's –
well, look, Wisconsin didn't have all their guys either.
Right. It's bowl games are bowl games. Like, you don't know who's motivated, who's not. Like, does it matter? Does it not in some cases? So if they had won that game, they could still be in this very same situation that they're in, but it was more fitting that they lost because that's how this year went. And so 7-6 is where they fall, and just with, very little momentum and tons of questions now heading into the offseason. And you really have to wonder, like, how long is Mike Gundy for this job at this point, just given the years that we've seen and all the, the ups and downs. It does kind of feel like we're at a point now where it could go up again, but, like, how excited would people even be by that, and how much longer would that even last before they're going right back downhill again?
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how they respond to all this stuff. And look, they haven't, Oklahoma State's not added anybody, but they're gonna have to add in the portal because they need a quarterback. But don't know who this is gonna be. I know there were some Brennan Armstrong rumors there, but I don't know where he's going. I don't know where Spencer Sanders is going. And there have been a lot of guys who are on that level or maybe even a little above who, like Sam Hartman, kind of came and went into the portal since those guys have been in it. So,
The thing is that Gundy's been, like we were talking about the up and down, like Gundy's been down before, and then, last year he's in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to the playoff, dude, if they win that game, right? So, like, that, that was so close to being something different and totally different from what it is now. I mean, in just a year's time, being inches from the playoff and Big 12 champs to now, like, what's the future? And half that team being in the portal. I do want to give Oklahoma State credit, though, for fighting and making it a close game by the end. Yeah. Like, they had an opportunity. That wasn't like they went out there and got embarrassed and blown out or got embarrassed in the level of, like, what Baylor did. Like, they scrapped back and fought back after digging a hole and had the ball at the end of the game with an opportunity to try to make it a little bit more interesting and, throw an interception. So that was unfortunate. But, I give a lot of credit to or get regaled through that interception, but I give a lot of credit to them for fighting those guys that are left over, and I just wonder now what's next for this team.
Yep. That brings us to what I think is probably one of the most ridiculous and fun bowl games of the entire bowl season, which was the Liberty Bowl for Kansas. And it was that was a microcosm of Kansas this season where every game was going to be exciting for the most part. They're going to be in most of it. And look, they got in a game. I don't think the end result of 55-53 for Arkansas or Kansas is indicative of who's a better team when you go to dueling 2-point conversions into overtime. It just, who worked then. Not a great, not the best play call by Lance Leipold at the end of the game, but you also start running. Here's the deal, though. Like, I heard them say this on the broadcast, and it's been rattling around in my head when I think about this game ever since. They said, you only have so many play calls, that are 2-point conversions. Yeah, but, like, you also run the same play again during the game, right? So if 27 trap works, you run it until it doesn't work. So I think that was maybe an oversimplification of, like, maybe there's, only so many clubs in the bag for the 2-point conversion. But I do think that as you look into the future, into the offseason with Kansas, like Jalen Daniels coming back, like, they've got so many good things going for them right now that I think that bowl game, even in a loss, just, it's kind of what the future is going to be for them, which is probably, as long as Lance Leipold is there, it can be pretty fun.
Yeah, so long as fans don't get spoiled super quickly, which I don't see why they would, other than just that's how fans everywhere can be, is like you get a little taste of winning even after a long time, and all of a sudden you just crave that, and now you get to the point where you go from craving to expecting it, and that's not really how it works. And even if you want to point at Blue Bloods, that's not really how it works for them either. Like, what's the national title drought now for Ohio State? Right? Like, how long since Oklahoma's won one? I mean, they've won a lot of games and lots of titles, but I mean, it's a hard thing to do, man, is be really good and really elite every single year in and year out. And so Kansas got a nice starting point. They've got some momentum. They got some feel good and some positives. And they had a great game that, somebody had to lose, unfortunately. They did get very lucky, I guess, in terms, of one of the calls in this game that certainly opened up and allowed this game to be a bit more competitive than it might have been otherwise. And I know that was a big sticking point with Arkansas fans, but, just taking the refereeing out of the equation and, valiant fight from Kansas to make this, an entertaining shootout and a game where, we're sitting there on the tip of our chairs, wondering who's going to be able to make that one more play in overtime as overtime just continued on. But Jalen Daniels threw for nearly 600 yards. Problem was they he was throwing the ball so much, they weren't really running it much. Meanwhile, Arkansas was running it all over Kansas' defense. I mean, they have 400 rushing yards in that game? Something close to it, right? Mm-hmm. Arkansas had like 1 billion rushing yards, so it was a tale of one team throwing it all the way around and another team just running it all over. But a lot of points, very entertaining, other than if you like defense and you were just cringing at what you were seeing. And yes, there's an argument to be made that it shouldn't have gone as deep as it did. But Arkansas, I think, was the better team when all was said and done, and Kansas didn't really have a whole lot to hang their head about, and they got to be excited that Jalen Daniels will be back and some other guys as well. But they got a lot to build off of from this season, and it should be fun to see where Lance Leipold takes them next.
By the way, on the chat room, S. Michael DeHart just said, "Look, if this would be if we were like an old school like afternoon, like maybe music FM thing." He said it should be 365 in the afternoon with the Dragon and the Italian.
Okay.
So
there we go. I like that.
Yeah, look, we could go back.
The Dragon nickname.
We came out of radio to this. So we could easily go back into that world, and it wouldn't be as fun, but I could.
I mean, we could. I don't know if I will or ever even. I'm not even. That's not even a thought in my brain. To be perfectly honest with you, you just put it in there, but that's not even. That'll go right back out the other side because I'm perfectly content. But yeah, we've been there, done that, and maybe in a.
An alternate universe?
Alternate universe, yes, like in the MCU. That's what we're doing. Yeah. But 394 rushing yards for Arkansas. That's something that Lance Leipold is going to have to work on this season, obviously. If offense is fun. Jalen Daniels, great, but need to stop some people.
Yeah, you got to get in their way. You got to at least – they were a defense at times that you thought, look, guys why don't you just let them score in a play so we can get the ball back? And let's.
Well, quite frankly, Arkansas gave up 500 plus passing yards too. So for all that defense talk, like neither side really can hang their head all the way on a full defensive showing. But that was a very entertaining game when all was said and done, and good win for the Razorbacks.
What would scare me in the Big 12 about Kansas going forward is that this was another game where they fell way behind early in the game. It was 24-7 after the first quarter, and they just don't go away.
Yeah.
They don't ever believe they're out of it. Look, they almost came back and beat Baylor when they were getting throttled in that game. They've come back and won other games this year. That is something that when a team has it, they're always going to be scary because you cannot, they're like the slasher guy at the end of the movie, we throw him off the cliff and he hit the rocks, and then you turn the corner and he's just crawling up the mountain, still doing fine. That's kind of how Kansas was. These two games, we'll take a break right here, Garrett. We come back. I do want to talk about Tech and Texas right back to back because those two to me are the games that we have not talked about hardly at all, and there were significant things that happened in each of them. One of them had nothing to do with the game, and one of them for Texas Tech was pretty doggone impressive what they did in their bowl game in Houston. So we'll come back with that. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. it's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, and Craig Smoak, or as we would say on our FM shock jock, you're listening to the Dragon and the Italian in the afternoon. Foghat coming your way after this, guys.
It's time for some Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Let's get to some AC/DC.
Guys got a new calendar coming out. You're gonna come down to the bar hop and see us. Yeah, but
we could totally do that and be totally joking doing it, but do it for real and probably manage and find a spot somewhere. But,
yeah. I mean, I've gotten offers over the years. It just was something I couldn't imagine, like getting up at 4:00 in the morning and being like, guys, did you see this last night on Spike TV? Like, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it.
It's time for some Alice in Chains.
Yeah, exactly. But tease before the break, we have not really talked that much about Tech's win and Texas's loss. Now, Texas's loss, we have another thing we're going to talk about. But Tech was so impressive against Ole Miss. And, you know, I had kind of dismissed Tyler Shuck because I thought he'd just been hurt too much. Mm-hmm. But the last few games of the season that he started and played, he's clearly a dynamic dual threat guy. He'll be back. Baron Morton is there. Donovan Smith, already in the transfer portal, already committed to Houston. That's where he's going to go play ball. And good for him because you can't, 3 guys, rotating through Tech, manage that about as well as you can. But I think that in the offense that Zach Kitley's running and Joey McGuire's got going on, that game was a really, really good kind of just a little look at what they could be next year.
Yeah, and I think that given the time, we'll probably need to make it a point, and we'll have to force some time tomorrow to talk about the new 4 schools and their bowl games, because I just don't think we'll have enough time here, most likely.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, Tyler Shuck is clearly the guy for them, and the fact that he's already announced his return and did so following a big win like that against an SEC team in the Texas Bowl, so they had a big crowd down there in Houston, was, massive news, and I think changes the way that you look at Tech next year. Like, They all have a lot coming back, but they've had, a lot of guys who did have a decision to make, all basically announced that they're coming back. I mean, they're obviously going to lose a little something here and there and obviously lose one of their better defensive players in program history to the NFL. But, outside of that, mostly everybody is going to be back for them. They're going to have a lot of, super seniors, and we saw how well that worked for Baylor last year. Now, even if they had all that minus Shuck, I'd be pretty high on them going the next season. But the fact that they have Shuck back, the fact that he was their guy at the beginning and we just never got to see it really because he got hurt so quickly that and then was out so long that you almost forgot how good he was supposed to be, how good he could be, or how good he will be. Now and now it's very much on the radar of oh, yeah, okay, this is what they saw in him, and this is what he's capable of doing, and this is what he, if he can stay healthy, can do in the Big 12 next year. He's clearly the guy. There's no going to be rotating with, Smith coming in and, Morton, I'm sure they'll still, use where they can, however they can, but this is Tyler Shuck's football team, and he's going to have all of his weapons back for the most part. Now, I know not everybody. They'll lose some players here and there, but they're going to be pretty well reloaded is my point. They're going to be hit a lot less hard than some other teams when it comes to, players graduating or moving off the NFL draft and all of that. So, they're recruiting really well. They've got a lot of momentum. They've broken ground on that new facility, which they've been boasting about. It's going to be the best facility in college football. And, they'll have that in order for the start of next season. And so, yeah, it's all there for the taking, man. I just think belief is a powerful drug. They've, amped up the physicality there because that's just, what that style of staff is going to do, and that's what we saw from a lot of those guys at Baylor. But that mental side, I think, I was talking about this with TCU, and I was talking about this with what Baylor really I felt was lacking, and some of that was their youth, but just the right mentality of we are going to the toughest, hardest working, most competitive, right? That's what Tech says all the time. That's what they were saying at Baylor. And that's the mentality. And they are going to grind on you, man. They are going to fight, scratch, and claw. And you have to know when you go to war with Texas Tech, you're going to war. It's not going to be, la-di-da football. This isn't going to be, soft air raid. We just score 600 points. That's a huge misconception. This is going to be fight, scratching, and clawing. And I think that teams in the Big 12 better wake up and realize that they're going to be in for an absolute dogfight when they match up with Texas Tech, no matter what the talent differential is or what advantage you think you have or don't have. And they went out there and they just punched Ole Miss right in the mouth, and they did it over and over and over again, and they whooped them, man. They totally dominated that game and made Lane Kiffin look really silly and stupid. And there was no, we didn't want. No. You're not Alabama. You tried to play with Tech, and Tech just beat you down. And I think that they've got as much momentum as just about any program in the country moving forward. And it's to stem that, other teams are going to have to be ready to fight next year against the Red Raiders, and they're going to have the benefit of health as well. They're going to have, if Tyler Shuck can stay healthy, that'll be huge, because obviously you saw what they were missing, and you wonder, with as many games as they won, 8 games, had he played a bit more, what could he have potentially won otherwise? They could have won 9 or 10 games, man. They could have maybe played for a Big 12 title in year 1 for McGuire. So I will maintain, I said, Paul, that the whole them being under the radar thing, if y'all remember, I said this is a better team than being given credit for, because they had a lot coming back that was just not really being talked about. And so I felt like McGuire, I was saying from the very beginning, that this should be a bowl team. That shouldn't be we made a bowl game. That's terrific. They should expect to make a bowl game. And they did that, and they went and took it even further by winning 8 games. And I couldn't help but think of, when Matt Rule was at Baylor, one of the big kickstarters for them was a Texas Bowl win over an SEC team. And, it was a different team. But then last year they beat Ole Miss, and just the similarities were just, kind of crazy when you think about Joey McGuire and now what he's doing at Tech, of beating Ole Miss the year after Baylor just beat Ole Miss, and how big of a win that was for them. So, yeah, they're skyrocketing right now.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out about Lane Kiffin, who, always everybody thinks he's got one foot out the door, and especially towards the end of the season with his team in Auburn, hovering around there. But look, he lost in the games since last January 1st. He lost to Baylor, a team that was good. That's a really tough. Lost to the Big 12 champ. Okay, he and then this year went through really well. They looked like a really good team, but they hadn't really played anybody. Their only good win was against Kentucky, and Will Levis didn't play in that game. So they won that game by 3. Then after Auburn, they lost to LSU. Okay, that was a really good team. So, and I'm not you should lose when you lose to good teams, but my point here being is that now they've got 2 losses against good teams in the calendar year of 2022, right? So then A&M took them kind of to the wire with the worst team that they've had in a long time, 31-28. Then they lost to Alabama by 6. They lost to Arkansas by 15. They lost to Mississippi State by 2 in the Egg Bowl. In what was sadly Mike Leach's last game ever. And then they lost to Texas Tech in the bowl game. So he's not winning games against good teams. No. They're not winning those games. And that's something he's going to have to fix. Now, he's got a couple of those at Ole Miss, but since January 1st, every time that they have a game that could be dicey, that could go either way, or that they need to get a big win, they don't do it. So that's just my little quick snippet on that, because we are running out of time in the show. So I want to get to Texas and Kansas State.
Texas Tech's going to be probably top 2, 3 at worst.
Yeah,
pick in the Big 12.
I'll put him. I'll pick him in the top 3 for next year for sure.
Yeah,
I mean
them and probably K-State and whoever you want to throw in there. But I think Tech's got to at least be top 3. At least be top 3 as far as what they're returning and what they're riding off of. And great job by Joey McGuire and a lot of reason for optimism.
Yeah, I mean, TCU will get some high votes, but we don't. I mean, Max Duggan's leaving.
They're the transfer portal and all that.
Yeah, we'll see that. I mean, they got another guy today, so Trey Sanders from Alabama. But Texas and Washington, before we talk about Sark's little outburst before the game, I think Quinn Ewers is extremely talented. But I think that so far the writing is on the wall that if the other team decides that they're comfortable with Quinn Ewers being the game plan to beat you, that's not going to work out for Texas, because he threw for 369 yards in the game and Texas just didn't look good the whole night. Now, granted, they didn't have their top 2 running backs. Roshan Johnson also opted out. Bijan, who is a fantastic player, and like I said yesterday, the best player they've had in a decade at Texas overall. So they didn't have those guys. But if they can't run the ball, Quinn Ewers, while talented, is not yet good enough to win the game for them.
Yeah, but he could be by next year. With another offseason. But right now he's not. I do think that was not a negative performance though from him. I know what you're not saying that. I'm just saying, like, for anybody who's trying to make it out to be, that wasn't a negative performance from him. If anything, it probably did give you some optimism about what he could be. But I threw for a bunch of yards. But the running game was just not there at all. And I do feel like Washington probably could have gotten some more separation at times in this game and missed on some opportunities. But, I thought if we had done we got off track with the vacation days and all, and like the Christmas break and all that, as far as like bowl games and stuff, I would have picked Texas to win this game.
Yeah.
And I would have been pretty confident about it, but it turned out to be a really close game, and kudos to Washington for just making a couple extra plays. But I don't think this is like this kills momentum or gives them a ton of momentum. I think Texas is going to be preseason top 25, and they'll be upper half of the Big 12 predictions entering next year. They'll have big recruiting stories for like the next 2 months, and then a whole offseason of hype. Like, that's just the drill. That's not even trying to diminish them. That's what it is. They'll get a bunch of momentum this offseason through recruiting and whatnot. And then, we'll see where it all falls next year. But, I think there was some bright spots from Ewers, but certainly you didn't get your running game questions answered in this one. You didn't walk out going like, yes, absolutely, we're going to be able to replace Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson and not fall off at all. It'll be up to Jonathan Brooks and eventually Cedric Baxter and others to fill that void. But they got to figure out I tell you, the Xavier Worthy drops in this game. Those alone cost them this football game. That was absolutely awful from Xavier Worthy, the balls that he dropped. And you lose by 7, and he could have had at least one more touchdown. So I'll be curious to see what ends up unfolding with him. But, it was a good showing. It was fun. It didn't it made me feel one way or the other all that strongly.
No, it didn't. I just think that's what, that kind of shows what they need to work on is, okay, if they can't run the ball that day, can they do it the other way? And they just haven't so far this year. And Xavier Worthy is going to be an interesting story to watch in the offseason, because there are rumors about him last offseason. Steve Sarkisian kind of addressed it, he directly addressed it, saying, Xavier's got to figure out what he wants to be, and if he wants to be where he is. That he said that. So maybe he'll get in the transfer portal. We don't know that. Sark's little incident before the game was very bizarre, where a guy barely touched him, was just trying to hold them off while Washington ran on the field, and he just lost his mind. I will chalk that up to pregame intensity, but it was bizarre.
Yeah, it was strange, and I saw people trying to Zapruder film this thing and blame the guy for having his hand on his chest too long and all that. I'm not going to get into all that minutia or whatever. It was a strange reaction. I don't care how long the guy's hand was on his chest or whatever. Yeah, people trying to make it out to be a lot of things that it really wasn't, which is just there were some strange responses trying to defend Sark. You could just say hey, the guy had his hand too long, but they tried to I don't know, it's just some people are strange, man, especially in defense of things they love, I guess. But it was an unnecessary outburst to the degree that he got as mad as he did. I don't care how long the guy's hand was on his chest, like I said. And, that's just, it makes you wonder, how how tightly wound are folks in Austin right now, because the Chris Beard thing was circulating, right in that same time frame. And so it's just kind of strange to see two high-profile head coaches sort of just acting out in different ways. But, obviously that was not to the level of Beard. Sark will be back next year. He'll have a bunch of recruiting positives, over these next few months, and a lot of build-up in the spring. And with Ewers coming back and, young players that they're excited about, and then some questions to be answered, like Xavier Worthy, for example, they'll be very talent-rich, and they'll have some high expectations, I would think. Because it is, after all, going to be another year for Sark. At some point, you got to raise the level of what you're expecting. And so he's going to have to win some games next year, obviously, and we'll see, sort of how that goes.
Yeah. All right, so we have two more games to get to. One we've talked about a little bit during the week just because of our particular personal fandoms. But Florida State and Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl was a fantastic game. I, for one, when the matchup came for Florida State, was a little worried about it, not because of Oklahoma, and this is the worst team they've had in 20 years, but Brent Venables is a year out of knowing this team really well and coaching against them at Clemson. So I knew that it probably wouldn't, as most Florida State fans look they got a 6-6 Oklahoma team. Yeah, but the head coach has been on a staff that's been kicking your ass for a decade. So I don't, or not that long, but, for 6 years or so now. So he knows what, even with all the new players, he knows, how Mike Norvell's going to do things. That coached against him last year. So he knows. So he had a little bit of advantage going in there, but for Oklahoma overall, and this is not at all going to be an FSU thing because it's about the Big 12, but for Oklahoma overall, I think you saw a lot in that you had a team that had one thing in mind, which was that Cheez-It Bowl, and the staff was able to whip together a really good game plan that worked out well in spite of losing a lot of guys to opting out for the draft, transfer portal, all that. They had a really good game plan going forward. So I'm encouraged if I'm an Oklahoma fan based on what I saw that team do when they had a singular focus.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to have a month to build up, like you said, for every game next year, so they got to figure out how to bottle that up. But, yeah, you give that staff, a few weeks to prepare, and I think they came out with as good of a game plan as you could have wanted. I mean, FSU is a very good team. They're clearly a better team, but Oklahoma gave them almost everything they could handle and, had an opportunity to win that game. So I really liked that the running game seemed to spark, and, obviously that's going to be obviously important. You don't want everything on Dylan Gabriel's shoulders next year. So to see the life out of the running game from a bevy of guys was good. To see a lot of the young players, or that's the thing for teams all over bowl season. A lot of the names that you don't typically see making plays was good. And, the defense has still got a long way to go. But you see the signs for Oklahoma. That was definitely a momentum-building loss. It wasn't like
not a good loss.
Not a good loss, yeah.
No, but you can be encouraged by.
Yeah, you can be encouraged about the direction. That's what I would say. Coming out of that game, you're not as worried, I don't think, about the direction things are going, and you're kind of happy, okay, that's a good ending point heading into a full offseason. Now, obviously, we'll see, what they throw out there next year, but I thought that was a positive overall, even in a loss.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the opposites, Oklahoma was trying to figure out who's going to play left and right tackle and all the things that they had to do in that time. Florida State, if you were healthy, you came back and played in the game. They had no opt-outs for the game. None of that stuff, And
I thought it was going to be a blowout, quite frankly.
Yeah,
I thought FSU would pretty much handle them, and for Oklahoma to have a chance to win that game, I was very pleasantly surprised by that. So yeah, I'm not willing to say that I'm convinced that the Venables era is going to be the next Stoops era or anything like that. But I do feel better than I would have had the season ended about a month ago.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So we have not talked. Look, if you want us to talk about TCU and Michigan and you haven't seen the copious amount of coverage, we have a lot of it on the video. So you can go back on the channel and watch it, click it and view it, and share it with your friends. But Kansas State and Alabama, it started out great for Kansas State. You know, they really had a good first quarter, but then, you know, Alabama had that, and I hope for the rest of bowl season that the guys who are the number 1 and 2 picks in the draft, and Bryce Young and Will Anderson, I think that could very well go that way, decide to opt in, and then it makes it really hard for everybody else to opt out. Yeah. You know, I know that you got to look out for you, but if the guy who's going to be the number 1 pick and then the guy who's going to be the number 2 pick both say, like, hey, no, we're going to play in this Cotton Bowl game, even though it's not for the postseason, you can't be a guy who's like, well, I think I'm going to opt out. You're going to be on that team. Alabama rolled them. I don't think it's indicative of their season. I do think it's indicative of, like, this is an Alabama team that's built to do that and did not do it a couple times this year and looked really shaky and off balance, even in games that they won. And Kansas State is not there yet, but the signs are there. Like, Deuce Vaughn's leaving, but Will Howard's coming back. They're losing Malik Knowles, and that stinks. But Chris Kleiman's shown he can get those guys in the building.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they're getting their top 8 O-linemen back, or at least expected to. So, yeah, I mean, they'll have their top 8 offensive linemen. They'll have Will Howard, and they obviously will have, you know, we mentioned in Knowles and clearly Deuce Vaughn, you know, some major stats to have to figure out, you know, who can make up for that. But that was honestly not that surprising.
No.
I mean, that was a good first quarter. And then after that, it just got away from them. And I mean, it's Alabama. What do you want me to say here? You know, that was a game where, you know, Saban even had a quote after the game of like, what was it? Do I have that here? Hold on. Okay, yeah. These guys send a message to everybody that you create value for yourself by playing football. It speaks volumes of your character when you choose to be a part of your team, and you can be counted on to be part of your team regardless of the circumstances. And I think he's talking obviously about the guys that you mentioned. Will Anderson, Bryce Young could very easily have sat out that game, but when they announced that they were in, yeah, I think it probably pressured guys who maybe were on the fence of like, okay, no, this is important. We need to play. And I think it was just big for Alabama to kind of grab some of their momentum back with Georgia getting so much attention, with LSU getting a lot of love, and just the feelings of like, is Saban losing it? I think they had a point to prove, and they went out and proved it. And just unfortunately for the Wildcats in purple, they just happened to be the opponent at the wrong time. And that wasn't a shocking result. But K-State, hopefully they enjoyed New Orleans. I'm sure they did. And they'll definitely be a team that's up near the top of the Big 12 chatter heading into next year because of Howard, because of the O-line, and just because of the respect that Chris Kleiman's commanding right now.
Yeah, I'm also willing to bet. There's a player that's in the transfer portal or at a JUCO right now that's a running back or a wide receiver. And there's probably a defensive player in there too, but on offense, because that's the big thing about replacing Deuce Vaughn and Malik Knowles. There's a running back and a wide receiver in the transfer portal right now that nobody's talked about, that's just kind of in there, that Chris Kleiman and his staff will go and get, and then we'll be talking about him. Yeah, because they'll coach him up and they'll be good in that system. That's how good of a coach he is. We'll be talking about him. So, yes, Deuce Vaughn's leaving, and he's just such a fun player and was such a huge part of their offense. But I just know that Chris Kleiman will find a guy who's another kind of unique talent, and they'll make it work at Kansas State because he's that dang good of a coach. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor Bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Top 5 year one coaches with the most pressure in year 2. And these guys all, for the most part, I mean, one of them had an okay season, but I do think he's got a lot of pressure on him. Number 5, Mario Cristobal. I do think, and I agree with Manny Navarro that we had on yesterday, that Mario Cristobal is content to move along slowly and that the fan base that matters knows that this is a program that got so far away from what it was that it's going to take some time to get it. They just announced a gigantic new football facility. It looks beautiful in the renderings yesterday that they're definitely going to need because they don't have, like, Miami does not have any of this. Any of the stuff that you think that a school with a history of Miami would have, they don't have it. They don't. And so now they're going to get it, and I think as they build towards that, then that's fine. He's killing it in recruiting right now. But I do think he's got pressure to show that, like, you know, to improve on next year. I don't think they think he's going to win the ACC title, which Miami has never actually done. But I do think that they that he does have a little pressure on him to, like, please show that you know what you're doing here in year 2.
Yeah, I mean, he's not on a hot seat in any way, shape, or form, but, I mean, they do need to see results. You got to see, you know, you don't want to be like year 4, like, oh, is it now time to see some movement forward positively? No, like, you got to see some return on investment sooner rather than later. But, yeah, I mean, I think that they're playing the right patience game here. I think far too often, like, I hate it when we see a coach after, like, 1 year and, like, maybe they don't make a bowl game or maybe they just slightly do it. And it's like, is this guy it's 1 year, you know, like, you got to give it a couple. I know he's now had, some good and some bad and even some ugly in some cases, but he's in there for the long haul. Give him some time and let's see what happens. And he may not be the guy when all is said and done, but they push their chips all the way into the table. They're trying to do what they can facility-wise, as you mentioned, and clearly in NIL and recruiting. So, let's give him a bit more time before we freak out too much. But I understand why some people who aren't in the Miami bubble who are like, I'm just telling you, like, this is just, like, people who aren't convinced he's that great of a coach that he'll be like the savior of Miami. there are people saying, like, this is kind of the start of that, but, we need to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, Marcus Freeman, who I think they love in South Bend, but, he started off rough. He closed well, but he just got a big, and the only reason I put him on this is he got a big transfer quarterback in Sam Hartman, and they should win a lot of games with Sam Hartman. If they don't, I think that's going to look very poorly on Marcus Freeman. Now, I think that they will, but that does create a pressure situation in that, when you go, and it's good. You don't want to have a lot of room for error sometimes when you're a coach. You want to have your team set and ready to go, but it has certainly shrunk his space there, because as long as Sam Hartman's healthy and playing, you should be in every single game and contending for the college football playoff. That's what the expectations are in South Bend. They've been to the college football playoff before. Marcus Freeman is young and energetic and is going to have a great head coaching career, whether it's there or somewhere else. It's going to happen to him, but that's a pressure cooker in South Bend.
It is, but I don't think that they have any room to be too greedy at this point. I mean, after 1 year, he nearly won 10 games with their Notre Dame schedule, which, you can argue about how, daunting it is versus other conference schedules and things like that. It's always, at least marketed as being like the toughest, even though there's ways you can poke holes through that. But I think if not for a couple of the losses that he had to who he had them against, I don't think there would be even a single gripe about Marcus Freeman, other than just, your typical day-to-day team, followers that, find things to gripe about or find things that they feel like could be better. But, overall, you won 9 games without a super elite, roster, super elite quarterback. And you lost a couple that you shouldn't have. Quite frankly, they should have been 11-2 at worst. But they lost to Marshall. And, given the way that the season started after having opened up against Ohio State and lost that game, to turn around and then lose to Marshall and start off 0-2 was just it was a very bad look, and it did make you wonder at the time of like, uh-oh, did they make a terrible, terrible mistake? But, they had wins over North Carolina. They turned around, and obviously BYU wasn't what we thought that they were going to be. But then he loses to Stanford in a close game, and again, Marshall and Stanford, you take those two out of the equation. I know if you did that for anybody's schedule, like, hey, take these 2 bad losses off, and it makes everything look wildly different. But those were the kind of the weights holding him down. Outside of that, 9-4, won their bowl game. I think there's a lot to be excited about, especially now that you've answered what you feel like was a bit of a question at quarterback.
Yeah. Again, I do feel like these two will have the bottom two will have the least amount of pressure. On them because of the situations. Well, one, and Marcus Freeman stepped into a way better situation than anybody else on this list, including the number 1 guy.
And his pressure is just simply the job's normal pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was 9 wins. Year 1. Let's see.
Yeah. Number 3, Brent Pry, Virginia Tech. This is a program, and I think we kind of forget about it sometimes, but was so consistent and good for so long under Frank Beamer that now it's been a little bit for these fans. And I don't know if Brent Pry will get, if they'll be as reasonable with him as they might need to be. And they've got to build through the portal. It really stinks for them that Hendon Hooker was there and then went to Tennessee and became fantastic. So those are things that are going to be weighing on this fan base. So I do think that Brent Pry needs to show something in an ACC that is ever so fluid every year. Not necessarily at the top with where Clemson's been, but, behind them, for the most part, there's wiggle room to get good. Look at what Syracuse did this year. You can make those improvements in a year after a long time of struggles, because Dino Babers did it, and they've been struggling a lot longer than Virginia Tech has, but I do think there's some pressure on them.
I think that there's reasons to, want to be curious about the direction that it's headed. They got to get, tougher up front. They got to find some real deal dudes to help out, offensively and make some plays for them. I guess playmakers would probably be the best word, but I'm very curious about Kyron Drones, heading there. And I don't know what their expectations are for him, but at Baylor, he just couldn't find the field. There's people that felt like he should have at different points. And did from time to time, but not in the way that he was ever the starter. So great opportunity for him. I'll be watching them just simply to see how Kyron Drones pans out, because that'll be, of note, given, Baylor, their situation at quarterback. But yeah, I need to see a little bit more from them, but they certainly don't have the sizzle that they had during the
during the golden years, and we'll see if he can bring some of that back. But they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, number 2, Billy Napier at Florida. In a very similar sense, this is a team that was consistently good for a very long time, but since Urban Meyer walked out the door, it has just been a cavalcade of mediocrity and sometimes bad. Like Will Muschamp, Jim McElwain, and Dan Mullen all didn't work out. And I feel like I'm leaving somebody out in there. But, until they get to Billy Napier, who's a guy I think can do really well there. And so far, high school recruiting-wise, he's done well. Transfer portal, I don't think they're exactly killing it, but you never know. I'm not very bullish on the Graham Mertz ad. If I were them and I wanted to compete in the SEC while Jaden Rashada, a very excellent quarterback, came in, I would have maybe held out for Brandon Armstrong or Spencer Sanders. But I don't know what Billy Napier is looking for there. But that's a fan base that is very hungry for wins again. And they're not beating – they might beat one rival in a year, but they're not beating all 3 of their main rivals. And they're certainly so far back of Georgia in the SEC East that the pressure is going to be ever on Billy Napier to look like you're closing the gap, because Kirby Smart is a young coach too, and he's not stopping.
No, and I think that's the thing, is they're just going to be judged a little bit differently because of the fact of where they are in the pecking order of college football, but also what they're stacked up against. So, yeah, he's got a big uphill climb thanks to the Bulldogs and now even Tennessee, and I know that the divisions could be going to the wayside and all that, but that does make everything kind of a little foggier in terms of like what to expect with the schedules and everything, is that those are so up in the air. But, based on the division format, yeah, he's at best, middle of the pack to possibly lower in some cases. But, the Gators are in need of a lot of different pieces. And I know that there weren't a lot of, thrilled fans by the end, and the way that they lost to Oregon State was just like, kind of like felt like Baylor season of like, finally get this thing over with and get to recruiting. And I think that's where let's see what they do in recruiting and in the portal. I know they're excited about Jaden Rashada. So, I don't know really what to make of them just yet, but you're right. There is some pressure on Napier after the first year.
Well, yeah. And look, I don't know who they're going to play every year, but I know that they're going to play Florida State every year in non-conference. And I do know that they're going to play Georgia every year when the conference comes around, and 1 or 2, if not both, of LSU and Tennessee. So, those are their 4 big rivals, and they went 0 for 4 against them this year. So that's not a good thing for Billy Napier in year 1. Number 1, and Craig, you know this all too well, but Brent Venables, I think because of the way that the Oklahoma fans reacted to Lincoln Riley leaving and Brent Venables coming, and then subsequently the season that they had, I think he's got a lot of pressure to show something in year 2, more than maybe anybody else in the country.
By the way, do y'all know who Florida opens up with in their opener next year, by any chance?
No.
The Utah Utes.
Oh, yeah, again, yeah.
Yeah, they'll play them again after
play
playing
them
this year
on the road.
But the interesting part about that, they'll be on the road in Salt Lake to open it up. So have at it, Billy Napier. And then Utah will come to Waco the following week. So Utah plays Florida and Baylor in their first 2 non-conference games. It's pretty interesting. But, not on a hot seat by any means, but there was plenty of room to feel like by the end of the year that this could be on the right track, but also at the same time feel like, is this thing off the tracks, and how long will it take it to get back on? I don't know just yet. I saw some positivity by the end. Dylan Gabriel coming back wasn't really a big question mark to me, but now that I guess it was somewhat of a question has been answered, that's good news. And having a full offseason under his belt, I think will be, really important. And recruiting-wise, I think that they'll be, they'll find some super impactful guys, and I think they already have. I think that they've already attacked that pretty well. So definitely need to give some more time, but just the thing about this is the expectations are so sky high for this program that, you really have to win 10 games almost every other year to feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I don't know what Joe Castiglione's exact expectations are for Venables in the first couple of years, but obviously this year was not the standard. He gets a mulligan, but next year, super intriguing as they're going to start getting ready too, Paul, to start getting ready for the SEC.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If Brent Venables has a bad year too, and then you start talking about moving into a new league where you don't want to drown right away. Like I also don't think you fire a guy after 2 seasons. So next year will be super important, and he will have a lot of pressure on his shoulders, which was the point of this list.
Yep. Paxton, congratulations. He went 3-2. 3-2 today. By
winning record.
By far the best he's ever done. The best he's ever done. So maybe he's learning something from me after all. All right, tomorrow we're going to pack show. Mac Rhodes will be on the show. Grayson will be on the show. Rhett Lashley from SMU will be on the show tomorrow. So we got a pack show tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Whenever you do, please like and subscribe, share, and all that stuff that you do when you're on the interwebs. Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak, Garrett Ross, and everybody else. For David Smoak, good night, everybody.